Welcome to another day of the BSL. I am Nyokin. With me is Gypsy. We just got done with the round of 32. True Touch narrowly managed to escape, almost losing to Kare. But now we are into the round of 16. So we've got all of our 16 players set. I don't think there was really many upsets. The only person that came to mind that got eliminated that should have made it was Terror. But other than that, we've got a really stacked round of 16. A couple players looked really impressive, such as Kryok and Vadi. What do you think about a round of 16, Mihai?
Yeah, well, I don't really know exactly all the groups off the top of my head, but like you said, Nyokin, only Terror was the main kind of shock knockout in the round of 32. And in the round of 16, we have like the, kind of the usual suspects, but with some really nice additions in the form of, I think, like Vadi, and who else? Probably Boa. There's some up-and-coming players in there, which is really, really cool to see. But for today especially, I'm excited about this group, Nyokin.
Yeah, so if you are an NA player and like to root for the one and only Jaeyun, this is the group because he's playing in it along with John Dong, aka Boa White. The only two NA players in all of the round of 16, and they're going to be facing off first. So that means that it's likely that one of them will be eliminated, unfortunately, unless one of them can recover from the loser's side of the bracket. But it's going to be very difficult because we've got two Terrans over there, Dandy and Cryoc.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at this group, to be completely honest with you, Nike, I feel like it's kind of hard to really predict this, right? Like, I mean, I'm looking at this, and honestly, obviously, if Dandy's on form, he's probably the favorite. If not, Jaeyun. I mean, Jaeyun obviously also has had really good BSL showings, and just in general is a really, really strong Zerg in the not just in the North American scene, but in the non-Korean scene as a whole. So definitely Jaeyun and Dandy, I feel like, are the favorites for this group. But this guy, Boa White, he's no joke, man.
Yeah, Boa, a really strong Protoss player. Last round actually looked a bit off, though, so I think he may have a bit of difficulty going up against Jaeyun. And Jaeyun always does really well in the BSL. I think the last time we saw him, top 8 finisher. He's got really strong mechanics. We saw Striker was it last week? I think it was last week. Yeah. Or the week before, where the macro was ridiculous, and Jaeyun is his mentor, so you know that the macro is going to be really crazy. And one thing that Jaeyun loves to do is he loves to multitask very much. He goes for drops, lurker drops versus Terran. This is of course ZVP, but I'm sure we'll see some lurker drops at some point. So not only can he macro, he can also multitask very well. So it's going to be very difficult for Boa White.
Yeah, and I mean, I will add this: Jaeyun has been. Well, he's basically a race picker in this tournament. He plays Zerg vs. Terran, Zerg vs. Protoss, and Protoss vs. Zerg. And luckily for him in this group here, he doesn't have any Zergs to deal with. So I'm assuming leading up in his preparation for this group, he didn't have to practice too much Protoss, probably just focused on his Zerg. So definitely going to be looking really strong. Boa White, as you said, I think last week, not the best showing, but he's a really strong player, and this is going to be a really good matchup. So we're already ready here for the first map. It's going to be on Benzene, Jaeyun versus Boa White to kick off this Saturday.
In the top right, we have our NA favorite. It is Jaeyun.
And in the bottom left, the other last standing North American player, it is Boa White. And yeah, I mean, Boa White, let's just quickly recap the history of these players for maybe people tuning in for the first time or that have missed Boa White's games or Jaeyun's games. But Boa White was an extremely strong Protoss player. I mean, he's originally from Korea, living in America right now. And this guy is no joke. I mean, he used to practice with Soma, the likes of Soma, and all kinds of others, very top Korean players, top Korean amateurs. He was basically A rank on Fish, which is an insane feat. But I know these days, I spoke to Crossy the other day when we were playing some practice games, and it doesn't seem like Boa White is actually practicing too much. So, I mean, the fact that, this guy doesn't practice that much, apparently, allegedly, but he just shows up and qualifies for BSL, makes it to round of 16. I mean, it just shows the skill level he's at just in general. But probably not the most well-practiced player in the tournament. And Jaeyun himself, I mean, what do you think about Jaeyun's chances?
Yeah, so I think Jaeyun's got a really good chance. Like I was saying, last round, I think Boa White kind of underperformed.
Right.
But he's still really strong. Everybody has a base level. I would say his base level is around the 2300 range, and that's more than enough to qualify for BSL. But is it enough to make it to the round of 8? I'm not too sure. Jaeyun is really strong. As far as the history of Jaeyun, I wasn't familiar with him until Remastered came out, and I think the first couple games I played versus him, he was playing like Hydras versus Terran, and I was like, what is this? Because this is a strategy that there's not many people use. Other names that come to mind that like Hydras are in control, but over the past couple years, he's improved quite a bit from his Hydra versus Terran play. He can do Ling Lurker, he can do Ling Muta. He's got really good Muta control. He can macro like a god. He can multitask like a god. So I'm curious to see how well Boa's base level can deal with the likes of Jaeyun here.
Yeah, and I mean, Jaeyun used to be a CSL star. The collegiate Starcraft League back in the day before Starcraft 2 came out. So he was definitely an up and coming player even before that. But both players are extremely strong. I'm excited to watch this, but game's already underway. Obviously, it has been for a while. Boa White opened with the gateway first. He already has a zealot in here. Jaeyun's trying to take his third base. I mean, his natural was a bit delayed, I think, from the probe harassment, which isn't something that you want to see. And Jaeyun's going to be forced off of that middle-only expansion, and he's going to have to take this bottom-right expansion. Now, that's nice for him in terms of it being a gas expansion, but it is very far away from his bases, and Benzine's a pretty big map, so if he's planning on going Hydralisks, it's going to be a bit tricky for him to defend against something like a Zealot Corsair style. But, then again, I'm not too sure exactly what Boa White likes to play. I think he does favor Corsairs in this matchup for sure. But for now, you can see the two Zealots are already in Jaeyun's natural, causing a lot of issues. The probe there, really, really annoying. And nice micro there actually from Boa White to pull that probe away. It helps in this engagement so much to have that probe 5 damage. And Boa with some nice Zealot micro. Will Jaeyun have enough here?
Look at the probe. It's still dealing damage. It has 1 hit left, and it's gotten off multiple hits on its own. That's allowing these Zealots to get way more kills than it should. And now Jaeyun's scrambling to get more Lings. And one of the downfalls of Jaeyun in general is he is a very greedy Zerg. So I don't know how many Lings he should have had versus the initial Zealot, but he only had 2 originally. And it looks like that may have caused a bit more damage than it should have. Now back in the main of Boa White, he is teching, he is going for his Nexus follow-up. That's a Cybernetics halfway done. We still are going to have to wait and see what he wants to follow up. Now this Zealot is going to bleed off a little bit. And there is another one hidden out in the center of the map, or mid right of the map. I don't think Jaeyun saw it, but he can suspect that another one is somewhere, so he's going to go looking for it. Now, what do you think the follow-up for Jaeyun is going to be? Because I don't think he spent gas for Lair. I don't think he spent gas for Hydrogen. Look how much gas he's floating.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely got Ling speed here, which is, Ling speed is like, if you get it, you're kind of looking to shut down the early 1-gate play. And just like you said, Nyokin, the problem was Jaeyun actually opened Overpull this game, and with Overpull you could easily have 6 Lings, 8 Lings out really early, and he does have a Lair actually, so
Lair's already done.
Yeah, so luckily for him, because I was actually worried too about his gas count, he actually did get that Lair upgrade. So overall, that Lair upgrade is going to be nice for getting the Spire, but of course it's a huge early game investment in terms of his economy. And like you said, he actually had very few drones, very few Zerglings. He only stayed on 2 or 4, and you can see he really struggled with kind of defending that early Zealot pressure, and it's showing, like, look at his natural saturation. I mean, his third saturation is pretty good. His natural saturation isn't the best, and he's already pulling drones to mine some gas. So it looks like he's going to go straight into Mutalisks here, which is really interesting. He's going to have a nice timing because his lair was so fast. And of course, Boa White actually invested quite a bit into the Zealots. So, you know, when you get that many Zealots and you get the Forge behind it, your core timing isn't as fast as it could be. So you can see the Stargate just now finishing. There's still the Corsair out on the map, and Jaeyun's Spire is basically almost done here. So the Mutalisks are gonna start morphing, but the Corsair is nowhere near Jaeyun's base. So I mean, the only problem here for Jaeyun for going, and actually Boa White is gonna go for the Overlords instead of scouting. So this is gonna be really scary if he's getting no cannons back at his base. He's not even making more Corsairs now. What's good for him is that the rush distances between the two bases on this map is huge. But I don't know, Nayak, this looks really scary for Boa White.
Yeah, we don't know how many mutas were popping, but it looks like potentially 7 or 8. And back at the Nexus, there's no cannons at all. As you were saying, the Sair actually intercepts a muta, so that's good. But he's going to see the bad news that there's Scourge already coming, so it's going to be 8 mutas versus 1 Sair to defend. He's building a shield battery. I don't know if that's exactly what you want, and I think this is just going to be game over because there's nothing to stop these mutas. No Template Archive, that means there's no Archon anytime soon. And this might just be a quick, easy victory. We see Jaeyun has already got a Sunken up in his main. I don't think speed has kicked in either for the Zealots, so they're not able to close the gap that quickly. And this might just be GG. That is a lot of Zealots. 7 Zealots can deal a lot of damage, but I think Jaeyun's got this.
Yeah, the Ehan timing, you know, reminiscing back to that big Jaedong versus, I think it was Stork game where Jaedong just went in with the Muta Scourge and like completely killed Protoss. But Boa, he's still in this game. I mean, he's going to lose all these probes actually at the natural. He has no cannon at the natural, so he really has to do a significant amount of damage with these Zealots. But with Jaeyun's production, and he has a couple Sunkens at both bases, I think he's going to be fine as long as he, you know, just pulls. +1 did finish for Boa actually, so the Zealots are going to be really strong against these Zerglings, and he's dispatching Zealots to all these bases. But the problem is Boa basically has no economy. Look at his supply, 29 supply and plummeting. Jaeyun, he has more than enough production, even though he's trading extremely poorly against these Zerglings. I mean, it doesn't matter. He's just going to keep making links. And Protoss is not making anything behind this because he has no probes. So, Nayak, I think, I mean, Boa still has his natural mining, but it's only 8 probes at this point. These Zealots are doing a lot of damage, mind you. I think Jaeyun really only has his main mining himself, but if you just look at the supply count, he's doubling Protoss's supply, and I mean, I can't, yeah, GG.
Yeah, so GG coming out from Boa White. He's going to fall down 0-1, and the Zealots did a lot more damage than I thought. If Boa potentially had grouped up all the Zealots and went straight to the Nat,
yeah,
that would have been 8 Zealots instead of 5, and he may have actually busted through to the main. So a bit of luck there that Boa ended up splitting them off, but he's going to go down 0-1. Remember, this is best of 3. Round of 16 is best of 3 all the way through. No more best of 1. So Boa's not out of it just yet, but Jaeyun looking pretty good. And I think Boa needs to be a bit more cautious. He cannot just risk going straight Sair and not scout. And then also, if you're going to do that, not build cannons. His timing was going to be really good if he had scouted it. But because he was blind, he got pretty much just caught completely off guard.
Yeah, not just that, but like also Jaeyun as a Zerg player, like in that situation, he was struggling to deal with the early Zealot harass. And then on top of going speed, he went lair right away. So honestly, his economy wasn't really that good. So if those Mutalisks did no damage, I mean, Protoss was in a fine position. And I think if, you know, Boa actually sent the Sair, even though his Stargate was delayed due to the big investment into the Zealot harass, if he just sent the Corsair there like right away to Jaeyun's base, I think he had more than enough time to put down cannons at both bases. And if he didn't skip that second Corsair either. So kind of, I think Boa's going to be unhappy with that game for sure. Jaeyun with the quick 1-0 lead. Going into game 2, it's going to be Boa's choice. I'm interested to see kind of what the map is going to be. I wonder what Jaeyun would ban in this situation. Apparently he actually banned the optimizer, so unfortunately we're not gonna get the optimizer builds today, dude. But I wonder what Boa is gonna go for. We've seen him actually pick Polypoid before. I'm assuming it's probably gonna be Polypoid or Selfit or something like that.
I think it has to be Sylphid. Oh, it's Polypoid. So nice call there. And I'm a bit skeptical of this pick because third base is on high ground. Now, of course, if you get it, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it seems to be almost impossible to just get outside of your base as Protoss and then also be fighting Hydras sitting on the high ground can be a bit difficult. Also, the third base, no gas. Generally, in the olden days, Protoss players want to have a gas base, but more so than not, these days, they don't seem to necessarily care. They tend to go into the heavy Zealot style. So we'll see what Boa's got planned for Polypoid.
But like Polypoid's really not that bad, I think, as an idea against Jaeyun. We know Jaeyun and Striker and Crossy, they all kind of favor that really heavy Hydralisk style. And Polypoid, because of that, basically Polypoid is actually kind of like a very, well, okay, actually I'll take this back. Because Jaeyun does like playing very turtle Zerg. Like he's very comfortable getting to hive and just building lurkers and sitting on his side of the base and then getting to drops and everything. But I think for Protoss versus Zerg, especially against Hydralisks and kind of early lair, like the very committed lair playstyle, I think Protoss actually kind of likes this map because it's very like there's a lot of high grounds to use, so Hydralisks aren't as effective. There's the map isn't that open, right? So it's easier to get storms off. And with the third base there, with the third high ground for Protoss, I think it's a pretty defensible position in the mid game. So I think it kind of allows Protoss to navigate that tricky early mid game where Zerg just goes for like mass lair, econ and units. But again, Jaeyun is the kind of player that actually, even on a map like Polypoid, his third base is going to be at another natural, and he's going to go into lurkers. So I'm going to be interested to see what Jaeyun's plan is on this map for sure.
Yeah, well, that's what makes Jaeyun a bit dangerous, is because a lot of players just have tendencies on what they want to go for, but Jaeyun is someone that really does mix it up. He can play the lair style mass hydras like Striker showed. He can play split map. He can play what he just played right there, where he goes mutas. He can do all of it. So I think actually showing that he's going to go mutas is a nice mind game here, because now Boa White may think that going into this game, maybe Jaeyun's going to be aggressive with hydras here. Maybe he'll just stay on lair tech. But as you were saying, Jaeyun can play split map. He can play Larva-esque, where Larva loves to just camp and play for the late game. So this may actually come back to bite Boa, because I think it's very hard to play versus late game Zerg on this particular map. They have so many bases available. There's so many high ground. They have high ground advantage defending, on the mineral only.
Yeah.
Now, Protoss isn't weak for sure, but attacking up into high ground is going to be hard. So maybe Boa has a particular timing planned. We know, we've seen Oya pull out goons. That could be a possibility. That actually busts camping Zergs, because the Sunkens can't really save you. They can just range the hatcheries.
Yeah, but it's just so hard on a map like Polypoid. The thing is, it's true, if Zerg takes another natural instead of the high ground third base there, I think for sure busts are possible. But like, if they just camp with that third base at the mineral only and then the fourth base at one of the high ground expansions, it's really hard just to ever bust any of that, honestly, with the Dragoon timing, because then the lurkers are on top of the hill, the other bases are like on high ground. So Polypoid is just such a weird map, man. That high ground really kind of slows down absolutely every matchup, I feel like. Literally every matchup except maybe ZVZ, obviously. But Polypoid really is kind of like the macro haven map, and Boa, I think, no surprise, because Boa, again, like a very, very strong, just like Korean macro player. But yeah, I mean, Boa really needs to step up his game, because it looks like Jaeyun is feeling, I mean, the thing is, even Jaeyun felt a bit shaky in that early game, right? Like you said, he didn't make enough links. He made that overpull, and in typical Jaeyun fashion, he really likes to go overpull and then just only 2 links. And even on Benzene, where the rush distances are just so huge, he didn't have enough time to make enough links to defend the Zealot. So he took a huge I mean, honestly, if those Mutalisks didn't do that kind of damage, he would have been really far behind. So It's really hard to say, man. Like, I hope we get a really straight up kind of standard game between the two players. Okay, we're having issues getting the game going here because of the you know, the BSL is really truly kind of an international tournament, so we have people from all over the world. And as you guys know, because Starcraft Brood War doesn't actually have servers, it's a peer-to-peer system in terms of the connection. It's sometimes pretty hard to get the games going between people from different places, you know, in the world. But we'll get into that game shortly. But yeah, Jaeyun versus Bo, I guess, I mean, what more could we say about that? We could maybe go and talk just a bit about who do you think is going to win between Dandy and Cryoc? Let's just leave it at that, because I don't know where I was going with this.
So Dandy, I think in like a year ago, he was my top Terran. He is just a killer in macro, killer in micro. And I think the past few months he seems to have been a bit inactive. But actually today, I was watching True Touch's stream for like a second before I was matched the game. And he actually was playing Dandy. And as I tuned in, Dandy just rolled him over on Optimizer. So Dandy, if he's taking out someone like True Touch, is going to be very strong. I personally think that Dandy's TVT is like next level in comparison to other foreigners. So I think specifically versus Kryok, it's going to be pretty hard. But last season, Kryok played really well versus Medino when they did go split map. Late game was pretty solid. So if he can get to late game, I think it's going to be pretty close. But in general, Dandy is just a killer. He's so oppressive in TVT. Whether he can kill you or not doesn't really matter. He'll just be content like sitting outside the bridges waiting for you to suicide into him. So it's very hard to play versus someone like Dandy.
Yeah. Well, okay, so actually it looks like we have the game ready. It's going to be on Polypoid again, game 2. Jaeyun versus Boa. If Jaeyun wins this, he gets in through the winner's match.
In the top right, in the white again, it is Jaeyun.
The top left in now the blue for us, it is Boa. And yeah, so Polypoid, I mean, we talked about this exhaustively in the break there, or in the chat room, the Gypsy and Naokin chat room. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. First of all, we have to see what Boa chooses to go for. Is it gonna be a gateway first, forge first? I'm assuming he's gonna go for that gate first again, because honestly, that gate first was really effective last game.
Yeah, it did quite a bit of damage. The probe stayed alive for such a long time. Got off so many extra hits near the end. I actually thought it was going to change the tide of the fight, where actually Jaeyun might have got it busted. So Jaeyun's going to have to be careful if we see that again. Now we do see that the probe has gone back, which generally means it's not going to be a gateway expand. But some players do send back the probe a few seconds later. So we'll see if that... looks like that time has come and gone, so it's not going to be a forge expand. This might be the 11 Nexus that we saw. It could be the 12 Nexus. I got a question for you. So, personally, I think all the maps in the ladder pool are pretty good. What do you think about the new ASL maps? We've seen Ringing Bloom, which is had quite a few epic games. There's actually an amazing game between Light and Bisu playing. I'll just say a weird comp. You should check out Light's YouTube for that. But what do you think about the new ASL maps? Because more than likely they're going to be put into the new ladder season.
Yeah, I really like them, actually. I like Ringing Bloom. It's going to be a bit of an adjustment to get used to the expansion kind of at the back of the base. When was the last time we saw that? Maybe like on God's Garden. Remember that map? It was like a 4-player map. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do remember God's Garden a little bit, but I think actually the most recent one was Crossing Field.
Yeah, you're right. Crossing Field, so I forgot about that. But Crossing Field was a 2-player map. It kind of different from a 4-player map with the expansion in the back, and that's going to definitely change a lot of build orders. But besides that, the map is totally like standard and has a good architecture, just like a good standard architecture. Now, I hope that if we do get that map, we don't have also Circuit Breaker, Fighting Spirit, and Polypoid in the map pool. So I'll say that. And the other map that looks like kind of Wuthering Heights, if you remember that map. Yeah, I don't know why it just...
Yes.
Yeah, but the other blue map, that's also a 4-player map in the ASL pool, kind of reminds me of that map. And that one looks really good too. I mean, Optimizer, right? Is Optimizer in the ASL?
I feel like it must be. Maybe it was just in the ASL Team League, but
Oh, right.
the people are still playing that map, so I feel like it must be.
I hope the point is, I hope Optimizer gets put in the map pool also, but all those maps are really, really fun. A shortage of 2-player maps though, eh?
Yeah, I don't think we did get any 2-player maps. Shakura's Temple is the 4-player blue map that you're talking
Right.
about. Ringing Bloom is another blue map that's also
Yeah.
very good. In this game, we've actually got 3 hatch from Jaeyun. Didn't go for the split map style as we were expecting. And, you know, I was thinking about this as soon as I saw the spawns, because as soon as I saw the spawns, I thought, well, if Jaeyun goes Hydra Man here, how does Boa White just attack into Jaeyun? Like, he's going to have to go through high ground to the middle only. So I'm not that surprised to see that as opposed to split map. If this was a different spawn, whereas it was bottom left, maybe we could have seen that. But as played, it looks like we're going to have probably Hydra Man. He did go there, so Spider's going to be coming in pretty soon. First Zealot moving across the nut. And that's, ooh, Probe getting dangerously low. But as we were saying earlier, Jaeyun is a bit greedy, and this one Zealot, okay, there's a few lanes popping out just in time to deal with this one Zealot and one Probe. So let's see if Boa White can get any damage done.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, because he went for that Nexus first, or that Forge expand rather, this Gateway Harassment isn't going to be as effective as last game. Obviously, Jaeyun had so much time to just make a couple lings here, but Boa, with these Zealots, what he's doing is he's making sure that the Zerg's actually making drones. So already, technically 8 lings, that's like 4 drones he prevented right there. And he's also getting some scouting information, so he kind of sees the drone count a bit. He didn't really get to see the drone count in the natural, and he only got to see the 3rd base from Jaeyun. So honestly, he's pretty blind. He saw that there's no link speed or no Hydralists, most importantly, because if Zerg was going for something like a, you know, a 973 build, I think that Zealot timing right there would have actually scouted it. So that's the most important piece of information now that Stargate's finished. But as we know, Jaeyun actually has a Lair finished and a Spire, but no second gas, and a 4th hatchery with just an amazing amount of drones is pretty indicative of this just being a Spire 4 Scourge. Now Boa White, as opposed to last game, sending his Corsair straight to the Zerg base, doesn't want to die to any kinds of you know, random Mutalisks in the early mid game here. So he's gonna get to see exactly what's going on here. The 5th hatchery getting placed down, and as he sees that, he sees the Hydra Den and the second gas, so he knows for a fact this is most likely not Mutalisks, or even if it was, it would just be like 3 Mutas, so nothing really scary. So he's just gonna get this Overlord kill for free. Probably assumes that the Scourge are on their way, so he's gonna pull back his Corsair, pushing out with 3 Zealots here. So Boa White really just playing very well, not gonna die right away. Jaeyun, of course, he droned up very nicely this game as opposed to the last game, obviously because there wasn't such big harassment from this Protoss player. But Boa coming in with only 3 Zealots here, nicely kind of blocking that ramp with 2. But I think Jaeyun's gonna have enough lings here.
Well, it's only 9 Ling versus 3 Zealots, so he's going to have a good engagement. Looks like he is going to, but maybe just barely. The Zealots are going to survive with low HP. And I was watching Boa White's build. It's not going to be fast Zealot follow-up this time. He instantly went into the Templar Archive. That means DT Man is coming out pretty soon, and you can see Jaeyun is scrambling to get an Overlord in position. Now, these Zealots will get cleaned up in the next few seconds. There's a DT! But Hydras pop out just in the nick of time. How many kills can he get though? 2? 3? I'm not too sure if that's the damage he was looking for, but overall, a decent trade. Also, for a long time, Jaeyun was supply blocked, so that kind of dampened his build also. So, bit of indirect damage that Boa White has done.
Yeah.
So let's see if he can capitalize on the Overlord mistake.
This was really good from Boa. I mean, you saw Jaeyun doesn't have that many drones at his natural,
Oh, man.
neither at his third.
Uh-oh.
He got a lot of kills at the third. Now, if he kills this Overlord, that would be massive. He has enough Corsairs here, but the DT is taking so much damage, and the DT doesn't actually die, so Jaeyun won't be able to mine from this base anymore. Now, Boa lost 2 Corsairs already this game, and it looks like he's planning on making more Corsairs, so obviously his build got set back a bit, but Jaeyun's taking a lot of damage, and back in Boa's base, we only really saw him get 1 gate. His gateway count is pretty low. His gates in general are a bit delayed here from the fact that he committed so many resources to getting the quick DTs and the Corsairs, and you can see only 3 Corsairs left over. Now, the nice thing about Boa is actually he made the Templars very early on, so they're banking energy already, and the 6 gateway kind of count is going to warp in here, and once he starts pumping out those Protoss units, because he got those Templars so early, he's going to have a really nice timing with Zealot Templar to really do some damage. But the only problem here for Boa is that he did lose 2 Corsairs for free, so he's only really on 3 Corsairs here. I don't know if he's going to keep making Corsairs, but definitely it is possible for Zerg to Muta switch very hard against only 3 Mutalisks, but it's kind of unlikely. I don't see many Zerg players opting for that play, at least not non-Korean Zergs. But definitely, I mean, Bo's going to be a bit wary of that, because if you pop a bunch of Mutas with a couple of Scourge there and kill the Corsairs, that Zealot High Templar attack is going to be completely shut down.
You know, I'm getting a bit nervous for Jaeyun, because this is the style we've been seeing for the past few months, which is a couple of Templars just banking a ton of energy into mass Zealots, already 7 gate, already pushing out. And if we just straight up look at the Hydra count, it's maybe 10,
Yeah.
okay, maybe 16, 20, versus what looks to be a control group of Zealots plus 3 Templars. Now, you can't be bleeding off the majority of your Zealots, but it looks like it doesn't matter, because they're just still going to be way too many. You can see that the Mutas are trying to come in, but remember, there's still 3 Corsairs alive. We're not worried about 2 Mutas here, so I think that Boa White might actually bust him. That's a great storm. Hit so many Hydras, he has at least 2 more available, and that's going to hit the Mutas too.
Oh.
It dealt so much damage, so now the Muta switch is completely nullified, and Boa White may have just busted him.
Wow, Boa didn't even need those Corsairs. He just stormed the Mutas down, and Jaeyun GG's, and really surprising, actually. My God, I can't believe Boa just walked in there like that. Jaeyun went for that Muta switch, which I kind of do agree with. There's only really 3 Corsairs, but again, Muta switches sometimes against Templar, just Templar and a bit of anti-air. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, because the Protoss land some 6 storms there, and honestly, Jaeyun kind of Muta switched a bit late. The Zealots were already at the natural, and you saw like basically only 2 Mutalisks come in, then 3, then 4, not like the clump together as soon as he wanted it to be. So unfortunately, Jaeyun's gonna drop that game, and Boa looked really strong that game. Didn't even go for anything like a gateway pressure build, which sometimes adds to the variance between the 2 players. He straight up just played like a Forge Expand build and just completely wrecked Jaeyun this game, to be honest with you. So yeah,
it looked like Jaeyun kind of got thrown off because he was supply blocked multiple times, and that really dampened his build quite a bit. And then the Zealot and DT pressure came in, and as you said, the Muta switch was just like 5 seconds too late, and that could have been game changing for him, because where were the Saras during that fight? They weren't there. There was a real chance for Jaeyun to just come in and instantly snipe those Templars. So a bit of miscontrol from Boa, but the storms were on point. Obviously, once they landed, they were amazing, but it could have been a disaster for him. So maybe Jaeyun just needs to be a little bit more solid in the next game if he wants to make it to the winners match. But Boa White looked like he has a really strong timing there. The 7 gate follow-up hit really fast. I don't think Jaeyun was expecting that at all. You could see how many Hydras he had. He had like 20, and that was it. So our next map is going to be on Eclipse. Let's see who's going to take it and make it into the winners match. Is it Jaeyun or is it Boa White? In the top right in the blue, coming off a solid victory on Polypoid, it is Boa White.
And in the bottom left, the red Zerg pieces, it is Jaeyun. And so Jaeyun picked Eclipse here. And in general, Eclipse I think is a pretty good Zerg map in this matchup, especially because of the bottom expansions getting into late game. Once Zerg gets into Hive, gets kind of a couple of bases on the left side, and then starts expanding in the bottom right with Nidus's, it's really hard for Protoss to kind of keep their army on both sides of the map, defending their bases and attacking the Zerg's bases. And, you know, it's pretty easy for Zerg to get 4 bases here and play that Hydralisk style and then transition into Lurkers. There's a lot of defensive positions, so in general, although Protoss I think has an easy time taking their natural, taking their third on this map, Zerg just has such a good time getting into a very macro, heavy position that I definitely favor Zerg for sure on this map.
Yeah, definitely a very good Zerg map, but Protoss players have had good success on here too. We do see the gateway opener from Boa White this time, opting away from the Forge. He did have such good success on Benzene, so this might be a bit of a tell that when it is 2-player, he wants to go for aggressive builds, whereas when it's 4-player and he can't necessarily scout you first, he wants to play a bit passive. So if there is ever a rematch between these 2 players, maybe Jaeyun needs to think about that and respond appropriately. Now the probe came in here and got off a very quick scout. You can definitely tell that I think he wanted to go for 12 Nexus if he had seen. Well, actually the gateway was down before actually scouting, so I take that back. But overall, probe doing a good job to deny this hatchery. See if he can continue to block it. Is he gonna pylon block it? Looks like he might. There it is.
Oh.
That's going to delay Jaeyun's build quite a bit. You can see how many resources he already has. 400. So this is a painful block, and the third base is quite far away.
This literally happened in the Benzene game also. I don't know what kind of nonsense we were talking about, Nyokin, but I was watching the resources that game, and Jaeyun got up to 400, 430 minerals before he even put down his natural. So literally a repeat of that first game. Now, the problem with blocking this hatchery is that you almost guarantee the Zerg to make these 6-lings, and when you're going gate first, I mean, it's not always ideal because you're not really going to find much damage with the Zealot. Now you can see Boa kind of running his Zealot around, very, very smart from him, dodges the lings. Now Jaeyun, the thing is, Jaeyun has no scouting onto the Protoss player, so he wants to go and see what Protoss is doing, but unfortunately Boa is going to get a random Zealot inside of the base. Jaeyun's probably even droning behind this, which would be a disaster for him because he has nothing to deal to deal with the Zealot, and Boa's going to get so much damage here.
Yeah, even if he doesn't kill any drones, the damage is done. He forced off a double drill. There's a third drill. Those drones are not mining at all, and they're not splitting off appropriately. So this is already disaster city for Jaeyun. Boa White gonna run away with this game as long as nothing catastrophic happens, and we see a second group of Zealots moving across. Jaeyun scrambling to get his other lings across the map to help save this, or to help salvage this game. I think Boa White may be on the brink of just ending this now. Luckily for him, or luckily for Jaeyun, he can get on top of this Zealot because the spawning pool is disallowing the Zealots from moving to the other side, but there's still a couple of Zealots down at the natural. Jaeyun still not mining gas at all, so his build is completely crushed right now.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, one gate's never really going to kill the Zerg outright, but look how many links he had to make. Think about how much mining time he lost there. Think about the fact that he has no gas going now. Luckily, and Boa with some sick Zealot micro, somehow he keeps all those Zealots alive, and remember, these Zealots are slowly regenerating shields, so it's not like they're actually on 1 HP for a very long time, and once more Zealots, more fresh Zealots join in, it's going to be so hard. And actually, I was talking about Protoss having a hard time ending the game with 1 gate. If there's a game where this ends with 1 gate, it's definitely this one. Boa putting on an enormous amount of pressure onto the Zerg. Now, finally, these Zealots get cleaned up, but look, 2 drones at Jaeyun's third, 0 drones at his natural. his base isn't that well saturated. Now, the thing is, Boa is actually investing very heavily into this zealot harassment. He really just made non-stop zealots. You saw the gas at his base was actually really slow. Probably his core is slow, so it's not like Protoss is really accelerated in their build. Just now mining from his natural, his core halfway done. Now that's going to be really fast from the Corsair side. And actually, Jaeyun's going for a lair here. This really isn't ideal against what Boa is doing, because Boa is already so far up on tempo in terms of tech that the Corsair is going to be out way earlier than the Spire would ever be out, and Jaeyun is going to be forced to get both Spire and Hydra Den before he starts making more hatcheries, and that's going to be a disaster. If you're going to get a Hydra Den anyway because your Spire is going to be that late, you might as well just stay on hatchery tech and use those resources to drone up and to add more hatcheries. So I think this lair decision here from Jaeyun, you can see he's definitely unsettled from the early game, and I don't think that was a correct decision from Jaeyun. I think he should have stayed on hatchery tech, and this Corsair is going to get so many overlords. He's going to force Hydras out for sure, and Jaeyun's not going to be in a good spot.
I actually think that I think we're going to have a differing opinion here, because I think that Jaeyun took way too much damage in the early stages. That this is probably the only move that he can really do, because he did show the Hydra Den and Boa White scouted it. So that means that Protoss has to respect the potential for the Hydra all in.
Right. Yeah.
So now he's going to be building cannons. This is going to be wasted resources. So this is going to allow Jaeyun to drone up during the meantime. That means there's going to be less zealot pressure. So I think this is exactly what he needed to do. Now, I agree. The Spire is not going to be up in time. So he's going to have to rely on something like Evolution Chamber or Hydra Den or something. But at least for now, Boa White has managed, or has had to build, a couple cannons here. You can see there's the colony. I think that may actually be for a spore colony, as we see the evolution chamber finish. So this will allow Jaeyun to at least go into mid game, but he is definitely behind now. When the Sair comes across here and sees what's going on, he's going to know that he's duped. But luckily for Boa White, despite seeing the Hydra Den, he didn't overreact, because there's not that much blue at his natural. It looks like only 3 cannons, so still a good response from Boa.
So did Jaeyun actually make a Hydra Den and just instantly cancel?
Yeah, he made a Hydra Den, instantly canceled it once the Zealot died. And I was
Okay.
a bit nervous because it was so fast that he canceled it. I thought
Yeah.
the Zealot might have actually saw the layer switch. But Boa White, despite thinking that there may have been a Hydra Den, ended up going into 4-gate speed Zealot. So Jaeyun may have thought, haha, I got away with something. But actually, this Zealot pressure is going to be coming in hot in the next few seconds.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you then. That was a good move there from Jaeyun to fake that Hydra Den out. But like you said, Boa basically didn't even blink his eyes or bat, whatever the whatever the expression is, but he didn't flinch, and he already has 4 gates out. He only went 3 cannons there. I think he knew he did a lot of damage to the Zerg player from his harassment, that even if Zerg were to commit to Hydra all in, it would be very slow and he would have enough time to react to it. And now already the Zealots, now no +1 just yet. I'm going to be interested to see if the +1 actually hits as the Protoss or the Zealots hit Jaeyun's base. But this attack is really early. You can see Jaeyun, he doesn't have any Hydralisks. He's going to have to rely on Sunken Ling to defend. Now, that's totally fine as long as these Zealots don't have +1. But if +1 hits anytime soon, it's going to be really scary for the Zerg. Still no +1, so Jaeyun's going to be totally fine. Look, the Lings are not even dead on the other side there below the... Jaeyun is defending very nicely, though. Those Lings get completely decimated, and now only 1 Sunken at this base. The drones are starting to go down. The second Sunken not morphed in just yet. This other Sunken is going to go down. Boa is rallying more Zealots. Still no +1. Jaeyun is morphing a bunch of Lings to defend. Now, because this Protoss doesn't have +1, it's going to work out. Jaeyun's going to be fine. He did take a lot of damage, though.
Yeah, but the drilling was amazing. I thought that for sure 11 Zealots were going to bust through 2 Sunkens, with one of them not even completed yet. But it looks like Jaeyun for now is going to stabilize. But as I say that, more Zealots are coming. There are still 4 in the 3rd base. So actually, this second round of Zealots may actually be all that he needs. And we do see a drone pull. So that might have been it for Jaeyun. He's down 30 supply now. I can see more blocks of blue going down in Boa White's base. So this was a 4-gate attack, soon to be 7-gate, I imagine. And if the Hydra Den falls, what's our follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a dicey situation here, and Bo is just playing out of his mind, honestly. He even has a bunch of Corsairs behind this, just playing very, very strong, like, rallying Zealots. +1 finally finishes for the Zealots, so they're going to actually be able to do quite a lot of damage, not only against the Lings, but the Hydralisks as well. And the damage is done, and now he has 5 Corsairs swooping in, gonna kill Overlords for free, putting down the Zerg even more. And I wonder if it, I mean, he doesn't even need to make DTs at this point. He's literally just rallying Zealots and making gates behind this, and the pressure is going to be huge here. Jaeyun's going to not be able to scale his economy. He's blocked now. He only has 5 hatcheries still, not mining from his third, and Jaeyun obviously is going to stay in this game because it is a tournament game, but it just looks so hopeless for the Zerg player in this situation.
GG, well played coming out from Jaeyun. So it's going to be Boa White going into the winner's match of Group A to start us off in the round of 16. Now, this was the Boa White that I remember playing on the ladder, hitting his build, putting on the pressure constantly, a solid timing on Polypoint. Now it's really solid timing. He didn't get thrown off. He didn't overreact when a lot of players, I think, would have put down like 5-6 cannons there. So really nicely done from Boa White. And now with him playing as well as he is this week, I think for sure he's got a good shot to make it out regardless of who he goes up against.
Yeah, I mean, Boa is no joke, guys. Like, this guy's really good if he is on point. I don't know if he practiced a bunch leading up to this weekend, but these 2 games, or these 3 games rather, I guess the first game was a bit of a letdown, but the quick mutas really caught him off guard, but he just played phenomenally the other 2 games, and he's gonna, I mean, we're gonna have to wait to see. He's gonna have to play PvT, which we saw against Terror. He actually struggled quite a bit, almost through that enormous lead he had, but he also beat Terror, so that was an impressive result in itself. So I guess Boa, honestly, he's looking pretty ripe for getting out of this group in first place, honestly. But coming up, we're going to have Dandy versus Cryoc, and any of these players are going to be really hard for Boa to deal with anyway. But Dandy versus Cryoc, what do you think about this? I know we were talking about it a bit earlier, but who's your favorite coming in here?
Dandy's my favorite, easily. When Dandy's on, I personally don't think there's very many people that can touch him. Maybe like the Wall and Vaneth, but other than that, he seems to be untouchable. And in TVT, because there are a lack of foreign Terrans, I don't think anyone can touch him in TVT. So Cryoc, he's really got his hands full with Dandy here. We did see Cryoc have pretty good games in BSL 9, but he didn't have to go up against anybody at the level of Dandy. Medino is up there, but Dandy, I think, is on another echelon above Medino. So this is going to be really hard for him. We know that Dandy this season is playing all Terran. We're not race picking Protoss versus Terran. It's just Terran across the board. And this is why I consider him to be one of the best. Look at the achievements. We've got 4th in BSL 8, 6th, 5th to 8th, or 5th to 8th place. And then winner BSL Season 4, taking down Koget in one of the best TVTs I've ever seen on Sparkle. Just a ridiculous final game. It ended up going the distance to Game 7. But Cryoc, he looks pretty good, but it's just gonna be so hard because Dandy is an absolute monster.
Yeah, and TVT, I mean, just look at Dandy's stats there, 66% win rate. Meanwhile, Cryoc kind of struggling. Obviously, the sample size isn't that big, so we don't have to read into it too much, but clearly Dandy is probably going to be much more comfortable in this matchup than Cryoc. And like you said, Dandy, very, very strong TVT player. Cryoc, we saw him play versus Protoss in this BSL. He played versus Ghost of Dark and completely smacked him. I don't know. I haven't really seen Cryoc play TVT. I know his versus Protoss and his versus Zerg are pretty good, but definitely going to be a challenge for Cryoc. He's definitely the underdog in this particular matchup. But that being said, I mean, Cryoc is a really strong player himself. I think he has good chances against Dandy if he plays well. And we're already ready for game 1. So it's going to be Benzene, Dandy versus Cryoc. The winner of the series is going to go up against Boa.
Bombastazine. You saw that?
Yeah, I
We're
did.
going into Bombastazine. So in the top right, we have our South American hope. It is Dandy.
And then bottom left, the German Terran. It is Cryoc. Or no, it's Dandy. That's Dandy.
Oh.
Megan, you tricked me. You duped me.
Oh,
Dandy
did.
is bottom
I'm
left. Cryoc is
I'm
top
colorblind.
right.
I'm
Come on,
colorblind.
Wake up. It's 2 a.m. for you. Wake up. But yeah, Benzene TVT, man. Okay, have you actually played a lot on this map? I know I played it a bit when it was in the map pool, right? A couple seasons ago. I played like I played Sharp. He smacked me. I played a couple. Yeah, and you know what I noticed on this map is that you actually want to take 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock fairly fast, right? Like it's much easier to take than expanding up to top left, I feel like, or bottom right. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's a bit tough to get any of the middle bases, but it is TVT where you're not as worried about overextended because the other player is most likely playing passive too with their tank and vulture, wall through the center of the map. So I agree that it does come down to who can get top and bottom middle, but because of how Dandy plays, where he's generally just aggro, whether he's trying to kill you or not, he's going to be on your side of the map, setting up some type of contain. So if you can get some positional advantage on these high ground center platforms, he's going to have easy access to these mid bases. Now, I haven't played Benzene since it was on the ladder pool.
Who did Dandy play? That was Terran in the last round? Remember he played on.
Was it
I remember.
SPX?
Yeah, that's right. And they played on Reap the Storm. Was it just the one game? Oh, it was Vadi. Oh, so he came out of the SPX Vadi group. That's right. He just played a bunch of TVTs too. So yeah, if Dandy came out of that group, he's gonna be in a really good spot to play TVTs, right? Because that group was stacked with really strong TVT players.
Yeah, and Body was definitely stronger than I was anticipating. I was not aware of him at all.
Yeah.
And then he just had like insane multitask. Now we see that Dandy is going for 14 command center here. I think this is a bit risky because Dandy, I'm assuming, is probably feeling like he's the favorite in this particular matchup. And 14cc kind of opens you up to just instantly losing to like a marine pressure build. And I think on a map like Benzene, this is kind of the one map you don't want to do it on. Why? Because of the high ground behind your base. What happens if I just position tanks there? One, they can shoot your mineral line. And two, even if you want to try and stop it, now you're shooting uphill where you're only going to land 50% of your shots. So I think this is kind of a bit of a misstep. So if there's going to be a victory for Cryoc, this is the dream opener, I would imagine. Now, this is something you don't see every day. 2 fact, 1 base, but I feel like this is just a very strong opener for what Dandy's going for.
Yeah, but the thing is here, Cryoc is going to be building both of his factories in his main. And the rush distances on Benzene are quite significant here, so it's going to take a long time. Danny's going to have a long time to basically just get his own siege tanks going. Now, as you said, Nyokin, to be interested, it would be crazy to see Cryoc just kind of move his tanks into that third mineral only and go up the high ground and kind of swoop around into Dandy's natural. As you can see here from Dandy's scouting SCV, he's actually checking to see if there is any mining there, I guess, but he already got inside of Cryoc's base, so there's no way Cryoc was on 14 command center and mining already anyway. But as that SCV pathing shows us, the other player can definitely use the high ground to their advantage, and that's going to be crucial here in Cryoc's attack if he chooses to go that way, but I highly doubt it. I think he's just going to force down the front base. Now, despite the rush distances being this significant, it's still very hard to hold off a 2-factory when you're going an expansion yourself. If Dandy goes 1-fact though, 1 port, no, he's actually going to go 2-fact himself, 3-fact actually, and if this is vultures, I mean, he might lose the game outright.
Yeah, this is going to be vultures, and we were talking about it last week where we saw all TVTs, and I was talking about how whenever I go gasless expand,
Yeah.
I end up losing. Whenever I face gasless expand, I end up losing. And the one build that actually has had the most success versus me when I end up going for something like Kryok is going for, it's Mass Vulture. And you would think, well, you have tanks. They don't take damage. Well, you're wrong, because when there's 500 vultures, they actually deal a lot of damage very quickly. Now, I think on this particular map, it's a very tough choice to go Mass Vulture. Tank is already in range of the bunker. He just gives it up instantly. And let's see how far Kryok can actually push. I don't know if he went double tank or if it's going to be like tank vulture here. Okay, yes, so 3 tanks, that adds up very quickly, but he is lacking on Marines, but it doesn't matter when he pops 2 of them instantly like that. And this choke is so tight that when the vultures come out, they're going to get blasted. It looks like Danny's realized he's got to do something quickly, so he pulls all of his SCVs, pulls his vultures, but there's 3 tanks here. The Marine does not get into the bunker. That's actually a big move to kill that, but the vultures, or the bunker's soaking up so many hits, they're attacking the bunker, not the tanks. And this could be Kryok just pushing through here.
I mean, Cryoc had 3 tanks and 2 tanks were out of position. Honestly, he could have had all those tanks sieged up in position for these vultures. They would have done so much more damage. Yeah, the SVs would have gotten onto them, but yeah, I wonder here, he needs to start rallying vultures. He's making vultures. He has another tank coming in here. Now, Dandy, he only has speed. He's going to wait for mines before busting this. Luckily for Dandy, Cryoc does not have any more Marines. I think if he would have built more Marines with this and had 4 Marines into that bunker, this push would have been completely unstoppable. But because Cryoc has no Marines...
Oh, look at this. He's splashing his own tank. Okay. Ooh.
Dude, that would be hilarious, using the barracks to actually kill a tank. Now, honestly, Dandy is building up a really good amount of vultures here.
Yeah, but Kryok, if he has the intuition, if he builds an eBay right now and walls off with the racks, the vultures could not get by. But instead, they are able to get on top of one of the tanks, but I think there is 1 unit in the bunker. No, actually not. Can the mines actually land? You can see Dandy's trying to float the racks over top of the vultures, and Kryok actually gonna bust through here. He kills so many SCVs. Also, Dandy was blocked this whole time, so he wasn't able to get out around the vultures. And now Kryok just has a stranglehold. This is one of the downfalls of vultures, is if you have a bad initial engagement, the second engagement is not gonna go well. So Dandy taps out, and Kryok goes up quickly 1-0.
Yeah, that was surprising. Danny just kind of rolled over and died despite having, just an untouched 14 command center build there. And to be completely honest with you, Nayokin, I just don't think Vulture, like going 3-fact Vulture like that off of either 14 command center or gasless, I just don't think it's good versus 2-factory like that, 2-factory off 1 base, because the 2-fact is going to have more than enough. They're going to have 2 to 3 tanks sieged up like that. I mean, in even an ideal world, Cryoc would have had 4 Marines in a bunker. Like, Cryoc had so much time to build a bunker. That was the one thing that was really kind of sloppy about his execution there, is that 1, he had only 2 Marines. 2, he didn't instantly build a bunker. If you're going to commit to the 2-factory like that, with tanks specifically, you build that bunker for 2 reasons. 1, it's going to help against the Vulture bust that we saw Dandy do. And 2, it's going to help against Wraiths if they ever go fact port. So you really need that, and he was really slow on that. But despite that, still completely smacked Dandy with that build. I mean, it's just 2-factory is just so strong against mass vultures like that. I really don't like how Dandy chose to play that. Although I know what you're talking about, Nayokin, but I think the 3-factory build for busting out like that is specifically really good versus Terrans that go 1-factory expand and then try to pressure you with tanks, and that's going to get completely overrun. But the actual committed 2-factory there from 1 base is going to be really hard to stop, because you get up to 3 tanks, then you have vulture reinforcements nonstop. And the thing is, those vultures are actually going to kill all the mines that you try and set down, while the siege tanks just go to town on the vulture. So Cryoc with a quick 1-0 lead here. Danny's going to have to pull something together, because he's quickly getting thrown into the losers match.
Yeah, as I was saying, I was a bit surprised to see the 14cc, especially on Benzene. Like, you saw once the racks landed at the natural. Yeah. If he had built an eBay, that is a complete wall. Vultures are not getting out, and now you're dealing with siege mode attacking your command center. So I think that was a questionable choice on benzene. If he had picked it on polyport or something, that's different. I think that's a fine choice. But to go for it on benzene, that's a bit risky. And he instantly got punished. So Kryok, with a really nice move there, we'll see if he can transition this into a victory. We still don't know what the map is going to be for game 2. But if I'm Dandy, I'm picking polyport. There it is. This is a huge map. I actually think he may go. I don't think he's going to 14cc, but I think he's going to gasless. So let's see if Dandy can recover, make it 1-1, or is it going to be Kryok going to make an upset and be facing Boa White in the winners match? Okay, in the top right, in the red, it is Dandy.
Yeah, we're not mistaking the players this time, but at top left, the German Terran. Up 1-0, Cryoc. And, yeah, Polypoid, interesting map choice from Benzene. I mean, I wonder what Cryoc must have banned. Must have banned something like Silted or... I'm just still waiting for us to get bubbles or something like that, I can honestly.
Well, I think most players are probably banning Optimizer since that's a very weird map, unlike all the others.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to see a Bubbles ban, really, unless, they have to ban tons and tons of maps. All the standard maps can be played, so no shocker that this is Polypoid. I know Dandy loves to play the macro, and this is pretty much as big of a macro map as you're going to get. Now, I am really just paying attention to what's his opener going to be, because if it's going to be 14cc again, I think it's much better on Polypoid, but I really just don't feel like he needs to go for this. Something like Gasless could give you almost the same econ. It's a bit safer than 14cc.
Yeah, I mean, Gasless... the thing is, I've been torn about Gasless and 14 Command Center. Because Gasless, honestly, is just there for picking, as opposed to 14 Command Center, Gasless,
It's 14cc again.
Yeah, it's 14cc. Not surprising.
Or is it?
No,
it's
he's
not.
building racks. The thing with Gasless is you actually, because you have that racks, you don't always die to 8 racks. But I feel like 14 Command Center just in general is probably, if you're going to go for something like a Gasless, it's very rare where the racks actually pays off for itself, I feel like, because sometimes you go 15 Command Center, which is basically going 14 Command Center, but you have that racks. But if you commit to making that 15 Command Center and the guy's like 8 racksing you, you're dead anyway, so.
Well, I don't know about that, because I'm pretty sure I play the ladder and go for an 8 racks, and feels like SCVs have infinity HP, and I just lose every time I 8 rack. So we'll see what the follow-up is going to be from Kryok this time, because he's mining more than 100 gas. Meanwhile, Dandy's just right at exactly 100 gas. So this is going to be another one-base build from Kryok. Now, in the old days, TVT, it was unheard of to go for a fast command center. Nowadays, if you don't go for a fast command center, you're pretty much dead. So we'll see what this actually is from Kryok, because he's got 140 gas. He already showed 2-fact. So it'd be kind of unusual to show 2-fact again, but I think 2-fact is actually stronger than 1-fact 1-port or 1-fact 2-port. So
You know what I think this is?
For that. What is it?
You can guess. I think this is 2-port.
You think it's 2-port? It looks like it could be 2-port. And 2-port is pretty strong, but the problem with 2-port is you better end the game with it, because Wraiths are not exactly the strongest unit. So we'll see if this is actually going to be 2-port, because Command Center's going down for Dandy, and he's just going to be running away with this game unless Kryok can basically finish it.
Oh, it's 2-port. I feel it. There's one there. Okay, it's not.
It's fact port. What do you think about fact port?
I don't think it's good.
Yeah, I also think that this is going to be trouble for Kryok. And it's funny to say that because...
Oh my god. He's going to get the scout this.
He doesn't see the top, but it doesn't matter because he doesn't see the command center.
Yeah, the most important is not seeing the command center, but...
This is the important part. If he sees the add-on in 1-fact, that means it can only be 1 port.
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, yes, fair enough. Like, most of the time, and Kryok's just having such a hard time killing this SCV, but Dandy does scout that there's 4 Marines, and he scouts that there's a factory and an add-on, and no command center. This could be a lot of things. Now, you would assume maybe it's a starport, because if the factories were to, you know, if it's 2 factories, they were to be, they'd be together, right? But I think Dandy, I mean, regardless of if it's 1 fact, 1 port, or 2 fact here, like generally the response is going to be the same from the expanding player. They're going to get siege mode here, and then they're going to decide between going factory or going starport. Now, personally, I think if you're the expanding player, you actually want to go for what the other player is not going for. Meaning, if Cryoc's going fact port, you actually want to go 2 factory. And if Cryoc was going 2 factory, you'd want to go fact port. Because if you are both going fact port here, which it looks like is the case, I think Dandy's actually building a starport at the top of his base. The other player, like, they don't have an expansion, but they have the same production as you, except they have the tempo on units. So look, the Wraith is already out. This Wraith can basically kill the spawning Wraith from the starport. That's going to be really problematic. And by the time Dandy even has 1 Wraith, Cryoc's going to have 2 Wraiths, 3 Wraiths, for Dandy's 2 Wraiths, and so on and so forth. So just in general, Dandy not in the best position here, but at the same time, Dandy already got his tanks out in really good spots, so he denied Cryoc from sieging up, and he's already pushing. This is a mistake from Dandy though, because there's 4 Marines, 2 tanks here. I think Cryoc is going to easily deal with this. The bunker finishes, he kills 1 tank, trades 1 for 1. Meanwhile, Dandy loses a bunch of SCVs there, but doesn't clear the contain, and he loses his units. And here's kind of an opportunity for Cryoc to get into a better siege position, but I don't think he will. So the big problem here for Cryoc is that he actually, there's no way for him to range this command center.
Well, the problem for me is that the Wraiths are split up. If, like you were saying, it's going to be 2 to 1, but now it's 1 to 1. But the SCVs can repair. If that SCV even repairs at 1 health, that means that Wraith is going to live, and there goes a Wraith. So the advantage in the air is now at least in Dandy's favor, or it's even. And I don't think that starport was blinking. So this is it. There's only 1 Wraith for him. Yeah. So Dandy for now has kind of survived. But he's still not in the greatest position, because now he's getting contained. We still see just rallying tanks across the map, but the loss of the air control is the biggest issue now, because once that Wraith dies, there's no vision anymore for Cryoc. What's he going to do? Float the rack forever? The Wraith can just range it down eventually, and then slowly Dandy can creep into range, siege outside of vision, and then hit the tanks with vision from his own Wraith. So Cryoc, oh no, he cannot lose that. If that goes down, I think 100% this game is over. Look at the Wraith range, just barely out of range of the bunker. So Cryok's, this is what I'm talking about. Look at Dandy, instantly unsieges, because he knows if he can just range that top tank, 3 hits can instantly pop it.
Yeah, if Dandy has full vision here, he might even tank one of the tank. He might even tank the tank shot to get his tanks to kill the other tank. So the thing is, you're totally right now. I mean, Cryoc had such a massive blunder there, losing the first Wraith for free, that the problem here, obviously, for Cryoc is that he can't really afford to produce out of both his factory and his starport, and also eventually put down his command center. So he chose to stop using his starport to keep making tanks, but he lost the Wraith. So now he loses air control, and he has no anti-air besides this bunker for the Wraith. So either way you look at it, Dandy's gonna pick this contain apart for sure. Now Cryoc finally getting a couple Wraiths here, but he's just donating them, and Dandy basically is in such an amazing position. Now Cryoc, obviously he finished his expansion, and because this is TVT, it's not like the game's gonna end here, but Dandy, he's already up 20 supply. He's got his, his econ's much better. He has all his infrastructure. You saw Cryoc is still only on 1 fact, 1 port. Dandy, meanwhile, is probably on 2-3 factories at this point. Oh, he was actually making the 2nd port. So Dandy's production is about to scale really hard here. And yeah, 3 fact, 2 port, which is not something you see every day, but I mean, he's going to completely crush this contain. Then Dandy is going to be in such a good position, probably going to take his 3rd, or just commit to a very, very hard contain onto Cryoc.
This is game over unless this 1-0 Wraith takes out 3 of them. We got 1, but Still 3 remain, and now the tanks are out. That means Dandy's going to be the one that's going to be putting on a contain. And unfortunately for Kryok, those 3 factories are not done. Meanwhile, Dandy's are done, which means that the 3 tanks are soon going to be 6, are going to soon be 9. Andy has air superiority. So in like Starcraft 2, it's like having Viking Raven superiority. Like you're just never going to break it. So this is maybe, oh, he just taps out. He knows the position he's in. So Dandy in a dangerous spot again, yet recovers. And now he has evened up the score 1-1. And it looks like Kryok is decided that he does not want to go late game with Dandy. He wants to get an early game lead. And I actually didn't mind what he went for. It was just the Wraith was out of position.
Yeah. Like that was just such a
down to that.
Yeah, it really was such a huge mistake, especially when you're on similar builds like that. Again, like the one thing the expanding player has on the non-expanding player is that they have the eco advantage, obviously, which means they can keep pumping out of that factory in that port. Meanwhile, we saw Kryok at some point, he cut production off his star port because he wanted to eventually get his own command center, because he saw that it was kind of unlikely for him to completely deny the natural. But the thing is, he's cut production on his starport and then lost his Wraith, and then gave Dandy their control. And you know, you're on one fact, one port. You're committed to Wraiths for your anti-air there. So what are you gonna do? Start making Goliaths? No, you have to keep making Wraiths. But now you're behind. It was just literally the game was basically over from that one Wraith dying in like perfect play situations, and you know, it played out that way. So Dandy kind of avoiding getting sent to the losers match, tying the score up 1-1. And we're gonna go into game 3 here. Now game 3, I wonder, is it gonna be Sylphid? Is it gonna be Sylphid? Is it gonna be Sylphid?
I think there's not many other choices. We did see, I think Kryok was the one that actually picked Bubbles.
Yeah.
One of the few players that picked Bubbles. Ultra, I think, also picked Bubbles. So we may see Bubbles here. 100% we're not seeing Optimizer. If we see Optimizer, I'm gonna be shocked.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised to see Sylphid. I'm trying to think of the remaining 2 maps. Oh, Eclipse.
Reap the Storm.
We haven't seen Eclipse. Yes, we haven't seen Eclipse, and we haven't seen Reap the Storm. We could see either of those 2. Eclipse is a map where you can instantly scout, and Kryok could make a snap decision. Am I going to 2-fact again? So that might be a wise choice. Reap the Storm is a map that
we're not
scout
seeing
pretty fast. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Reap the Storm. That's a very punishing TVT map. If you ever lose map control, you are going to get punished very hard. So I don't think we're going to see that, but I think Eclipse could be a good choice.
Eclipse is a really fun TVT map. It just plays so interestingly, and even the player that doesn't have map control has options. The player that does have map control has options. It's a very dynamic map actually for TVT. So I think we could see that, especially because it's going to be 2-player. It's easier to scout the other opponent. There's not as much variance as on a 4-player map. For example, when people go for gasless, go for 14 command center, 8 racks, stuff like that. Really spawn or scouting dependent builds sometimes, and spawn dependent builds. But on 2-player maps, that kind of cuts out a lot of that variance. So interested to see that. I mean, I wonder what Danny would ban in this situation. I feel like he would probably ban, like as you said, Optimizer or Bubbles or something kind of. I mean, Bubbles is pretty standard, obviously, but definitely not a map that people practice, I don't think. So probably going to ban one of those. And then Kryok has a lot of choices to pick from. I have a feeling, yeah, it's probably going to be Sylphid, but if it's not Sylphid, I guess it's probably going to be Eclipse. And yeah, I mean, Sylphid, another map where it's a much smaller map and it's a 3-player map, so scouting is much easier. It's a bit harder to get away with stuff like 14 command center. 8 racks is really, you know, stuff like 8 racks is very possible on that map because you can build in the middle. Rush distances aren't that large. So it looks like you said, Kryok wants to play a bit more aggressively, but does he though? Like, it was really weird because Fact Port isn't really the type of all-in that you see from aggressive players. Usually it's stuff like 2 factory into like double vulture production or something like that.
Well, we do have Eclipse, so it's not going to be Sylphid. So we'll see. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Dandy or is it going to be Cryoc to be facing off against Boa White in the winners match? Okay, in the top right, we have our German Terran. It is Cryoc.
On the bottom left, the god Peruvian Terran himself, or one of the two, Dandy.
So if you're Cryoc here,
Yeah.
what's our move? What do you think is the go-to to take Dandy down here? Is it aggressive play again? Are we 14 CCing? What is it?
You asking me what I would do, or what I think Cryoc should do?
Either one.
I don't know, man. I think he just yeah, I really don't know, dude. If I were playing Dandy, I would just play a standard game and try and outplay him. Cryoc doesn't seem like he's confident enough to do that. He instead is going for stuff like, the thing is, the first game against 14 Command Center going for 2-fact like that, I think is totally fine, because if the 14 Command Center player gets 14 Command Center off and you're expanding into that, you're really far behind heading into the mid game, and it's just generally very hard to defend against 2-factory when you're expanding. Like you know, whether it's gasless or 14 Command Center, or even sometimes when you go 1-fact expand, it can be tricky against the 2-facting player, honestly. So I don't mind that, but in game 2 where he went for that fact port there, that was not, that just seemed a bit odd, and the execution was a bit off. So I don't know if he has that confidence there. So if you're asking me on a 2-player map what you should do if you're playing aggressive or something like that, it's definitely 8-Rax comes to mind, but he's not even going for that. So
yeah. So I was gonna say this. My prediction was I thought Dandy was gonna go for gasless here. No, I'm wrong, because this is 12th gas. So if I was Croc, I may have actually 8-Rax this particular game, because felt like we were going to have another gasless, despite it being a 2-player map where you're going to get scouted first.
yeah.
So that's not the case this time. We'll see what the response from Croc is going to be. I think that we've shown 2 aggressive plays. I think you got to go for macro here, but at the same time, I think Dandy knows that it's got to be macro this time, because I just shut down your second aggressive play. So I wouldn't hate to see another aggressive opener, but because it is a 2-player map, you can see Dandy got off a very quick scout, sees that the SCVs have been pulled off a gas. Everything looks very normal. Meanwhile, on the other side, I thought that Krog actually took a bit of damage on his SCV, and I think that is actually his SCV leaving the base. So yeah. Dandy theoretically could be going for a 1-base play, but you know the chances of that happening are extremely low. So for him to just turn it around, I think it's okay.
Yeah, the thing is, early scouting in TVT is absolutely crucial, especially if you go for stuff like 1-factor expand, like vulture expand. If you're not scouting and you don't know what the other player's on, there's so many things that can come your way, especially if you're on that 1 vulture, right? In this case, it looks like both players are going to play standard. Dandy seems to have a better idea of what Cryoc is doing. Dandy actually going for that vulture first, this is the most standard way to play. He only has 1 marine though, which is kind of, or unless there's, yeah, he only has 1 marine, which is annoying because 1 marine there isn't enough to kill the Rax reliably. It's not enough to defend against Wraiths, so kind of gets his expansion a bit faster, but sometimes has some repercussions in the later stages of the mid game. But Cryoc himself went for 3 marines there, a bit more passive and honestly not really necessary, but he got his add-on, so I'm assuming Cryoc is going straight for tanks. Meanwhile, Dandy looks like he's setting up for playing with vultures. And yeah, I mean, what do you think about this build order selection from both players here? Like, what do you like more? I don't know, like tanks versus vultures.
So Dandy's opener is pretty much just standard TVT. Sometimes you see 2 vultures. This is okay. End up going 1 vulture. 1 marine is a bit iffy, because if the other player had built 2 vultures and just sent them, you would be in a bit of trouble, since the marine is just going to get instantly killed. Now we do see Croc is moving across with 3 marines and a tank. And this is something that you cannot do. You cannot just move your Marines, because if this tank comes across without any support, Vultures do a surprising amount of damage. I realize there's only 2 right now, but soon to be 4, 5, 6 adds up pretty quickly. I did see a second factory coming down for Crocs. Everything looks like just the standard tank attack that you see players like Dandy actually use quite a bit. Now Croc is turning around. I guess he suspects that a backstab is coming, and he was correct. Is he going to be able to save these Marines? So it looks like he's not, and that's all of his anti-air. So now Dandy actually can just go scout the main. Meanwhile, back in Dandy's base, he has an armory himself. I think that is the racks floating near the center of the map for Croc. So if there are like 2 or 4 Goliaths here, this could be a quick racks just instantly dying. And at this point in the game, that's kind of a big deal, because that means Croc's going to scramble to get up more factories, which means he's cutting into units, and that may actually lead to a potential timing from Dandy.
Yeah, the good thing about Dandy has going here is that he didn't. So sometimes when you go with this Vulture expand and the tanks just walk across the map, like you were talking about that attack there, it can be really scary to deal with. But Dandy didn't have to do anything here, and Croc didn't really press his advantage in terms of the early composition here, because he definitely had a timing there to rally tanks at Dandy's base. You see, Dandy even made a bunker in preparation for that, but mostly also because he decided to go counterattack with the 2 Vultures there. But Dandy, the thing is, when you go Vultures, you really want to know whether or not the other player is going Vultures or not, because then that also kind of affects the amount of SCVs that you want to cut or keep making. And in this case, because Dandy identified that Croc's not actually going Vultures himself, he gets to take this early game map control here, lay some mines down, and he can start kind of continue pumping SCVs and start tank production, but have map control. Now Cryoc, because he went for tanks right away, you can see he already has 6 tanks, so he's going to have a sizable, or 5 tanks only, and he's already adding a couple more factories. So Cryoc's going to have a very nice timing here to either, it looks like he's gearing up to play onto the map to do a push or something, not to take a fast third. But honestly, in these positions, if Cryoc uses his map control to push out, he can easily take Dandy's high ground and actually expand at bottom right. And I'd be interested to see if Cryoc goes for something like that instead of expanding at top, but he has no scans here, so okay, very nicely diffuses that mine. He doesn't want to lose any tanks for free there. This is really kind of scary from Cryoc, and the thing is, you don't really know what Dandy is on. I guess he's getting some kind of scouting onto Dandy's base, and he saw the tank, so he knows, and he already has a wall, so very nicely played there for Cryoc, not getting threatened by Vulture run buys. But yeah, I'm interested to see here, is Cryoc going to take a third at 12 o'clock or at bottom right? Is he even going to try and push this high ground? It's getting too late to do that.
Yeah, so massive tank advantage right now for Croc. That is a starport, or that's a command center at the top base of Danny. He's going to be the one trying to take a very quick third base, so that means his unit count is going to be pretty low for quite some time. Fortunately for him, he's Terran though, which has 70 damage units in those tanks and 125 with these underground missiles, or underground mines, I mean. So for now, he's going to be okay. He does have the Eclipse high ground going for him, sitting on top of that, so it's going to be very hard for him to get punished. But what Croc is going for is actually a pretty good punishing build for what but Dandy's going for. It's like 4 or 5 factory. He's got a decent amount of Vultures. All he has to do is try and see where Dandy's army is. He sees it's on the high ground. If he was to go around this army right now, and set up a contain outside of the net, this game's done, because there's just nothing that can break it. Now I realize Dandy could instantly counterattack, but probably Croc will have a few tanks. You can see that Dandy realizes the threat. Oh no! Okay. None of those. Yeah, so lucky. Only one of the mines actually hit, but he is going to lose a tank there. And he's going to be careful.
The thing with Croc is he only has tank Goliath, and he has a bunch of tanks. Where are his Vultures? If you're going this kind of build, you have to rally a bunch of Vultures to really bust positions. They're kind of lagging behind here. Croc's going to take a lot of punishment from these tanks. You really want Vultures to soak up the tank hits, to not lose your own tanks, but Croc is getting into a really, really nice position here, and unfortunately for Dandy, the thing is his third is going to get very, very threatened here, and Cryoc, He needs to do something though, because unfortunately Dandy is floating so many resources, despite the fact that he has a faster third. It doesn't matter if you can't spend those resources, and you can see Dandy still on 3 factory production, only now going up to 5. Meanwhile, Kryok has been on 5 factory for a while. So even though Dandy has, or 4 factory rather, but even though Dandy has an economic lead here for sure in terms of establishing his third, economic leads mean nothing if you have the same production. You have to really outscale your opponent's production, but he's not doing that. Look at how many resources he's floating. This is terrible for Dandy. This expansion means absolutely nothing. Basically, the sacrificed position onto the map, and honestly, this is looking really bad for Dandy.
Well, I hate to call this as a broken replay, because that's kind of insulting, but there's about 10 idle SCVs for Dandy at his main and natural. I find that highly unlikely, but you never know. We'll see. Might go into, well, I mean, the SCVs they are attacking, but both players are floating quite a bit. So I'm not too sure if, I mean, I find it very highly unlikely that Dandy has all those SCVs.
Yeah, I think this is broken 100%.
So more than likely, this is a broken replay or broken game. It's not a replay. Yeah, tank in the main. So that's a bit unlucky, but maybe we can go into FP view.
I don't think, we don't have that.
Oh, unfortunately, we don't have FP view in this particular yet. Kryok has also got a tank rallied to his main. SCV's idle there.
Oh man, yeah, well, there's not much more to say about this, because
Watch us come back, and it's actually like Dandy has like 20 tanks set up outside of Kryok's base. It's like completely different.
Could be, but this is so weird. It's so unfortunate. There's no way of knowing exactly what the game state was at that point. I can't even. The thing is, Kryok definitely was in a position where he was looking to do some damage, to play aggressively there, and it's up to Dandy to defend his third successfully and scale up his production. But given what we know, like, who knows where they were at in terms of this game. So basically, we're gonna have to just wait and see. Probably they'll have to finish the game, and then only then will we know exactly what happened.
I think we should either put on a different screen or something, because more than likely someone's going to type GG, and then we're going to know the result. Right?
Yeah, the GG is good too, right? Yeah, I think so.
I think that you should maybe stay in the game, because if you leave the game, they might think that they should leave the game. But put up a different screen, maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's gonna be the BSL is getting into the Nyoken and Gypsy show now. The sneak peek. This is gonna be the pilot show for the Nyoken and Gypsy podcast. So, Nyoken, what do you want to talk about on the Nyoken and Gypsy podcast? And you can talk about how crazy my hair is today.
Yeah. So we can talk about this, because your hair was bananas, and then you told me that. Well, I told you that I've got the office comb over, and that you can look forward to that in the next 10 to 15 years. And you told me that you were going to go bald before that happens. So I asked you, what do you think about me going bald? And then you just didn't answer. You kind of just smirked and didn't answer. I don't know what that means. You telling me I can't pull that off? Tell me this face can't pull that off? Come on now. Why are you still silent? Why?
I mean, honestly, even I wouldn't be able to pull off the bald look for sure. I feel like no one would be able to pull off the bald look until you see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, even when I look at my pictures with short hair, like, it's just kind of weird. Like, it just seems weird to me. I can't imagine even have a. You know what I'm scared of? Like, I'm scared. I'm gonna get a nice bald spot right here.
That's what my dad has.
It's gonna grow and shred my fucking hair. That's what's gonna happen.
My dad has, yeah. Call it the spot. You know, there are some very funny tattoos that some people have on that area. Like, the one that I like the most is they have like a lawnmower there.
Yeah.
So
wait, what?
They have like a tattoo of the lawnmower.
Is this something that you've seen on Imager or something?
Yeah, on Imager.
Oh.
My dad likes that one quite a bit.
Yeah, you think he's gonna get it?
No.
I mean, that's actually genius. I feel like if you make fun of, like, if you're, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a bald spot. Like, you know, famously, Patrick Stewart has a bald spot right there, and he's a legend. You know what I'm talking about, Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Okay. I mean, his bald spot is legendary, right?
Let me ask you, Star Trek or Star Wars?
What do you mean?
This will get the chat. This will get the chat.
I feel like this is a very, 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 very obvious answer.
Okay, what's the obvious answer? Star Wars?
Yikes, dude.
Star Trek?
Yeah, obviously. What do you mean, dude? Star Trek is 1 million trillion billion bazillion times.
Let me tell you. In high school, I had a teacher where he started the day off with a question every day.
Okay.
And one of the questions was worst TV show on.
In high
Worst
school, you
TV
mean?
Yeah, in high school. So I mean,
Yeah.
I know that's like last year for you, but for me, that was like 20 years ago. So let's say worst TV show. What's your answer to that question?
Why are you asking me a question about worst TV shows when I told you Star Trek? Does that mean?
Okay, so I'll give you my answer. My answer was Star Trek. The entire class like hated me. I cannot stand Star Trek. There's just nothing.
How,
it's
dude?
so boring. I just find it so boring. So when I
Which one though?
It doesn't matter. Not the movie. I haven't seen the new movies. Apparently, the movies are pretty good. But I'm talking about the TV show.
Oh, not even the new movies. How, dude?
I couldn't. No. I couldn't take.
I don't think we can be friends.
That was it. That's what did us in. So
but do you even like Star Wars? I feel like you wouldn't like Star. I feel like the only Star you like is Starcraft.
That's right. So Star Wars. Star Wars. I don't even really like that either. It's kind of okay. I've seen the first 3. I didn't see the other 5 or whatever they have. I don't even know because that's just not my thing. Oh, we're going back.
Oh, you're
that's
killing.
The end of the
get me off this conversation because you're pissing me off, dude.
So it looks like the Gypsy Nyokin podcast is not gonna be a thing. Unfortunately, I ruined it within the. Oh, okay, we're already into the game. 9:55. Yeah. So it looks like Kryok does have some type of contain outside of the third base, but because of the positioning of these tanks, doesn't look like Dandy or it doesn't look like Kryok's actually be able to punish the third base. Now there are speed vultures. I think this is ×4 or ×8 0 because we're moving pretty freaking fast.
I mean that's fine because we have to get ready for the other games, right? So knowing though here you can see off this command center he added a bunch of factories, but unfortunately Kryok already had position onto this base here and he got vultures right into that base, completely denying mining, and unfortunately because Dandy lost so much mining here, suddenly it's going to be very hard for him to afford all those factories that he just put down, and if he can't afford to make a bunch of units here, it's going to be really hard for him to bust out of this. So surprisingly here it's looking really bad for Dandy, but Dandy's actually also expanding at 12 or 6 o'clock here. If he can get that off, it would be amazing for him. But Kryok is definitely in a really good spot.
Yeah, Kryok denying the third base. He has his third base himself, and Dandy is struggling to get any type of control of this game. 4 or 5 tanks in position can trade ridiculously well as long as a few vultures don't soak up the majority of the hits. It looks like Dandy's got his eyes set on bottom middle, which is okay. The problem with taking bottom middle for Dandy is that means there's a lot of defense here. And we already saw Kryok exploit mid-left when there was a lack of defense there.
Yeah.
So I feel like this may just be a repeat. Now, there's a ton more units for Dandy now because last time we saw his base, it was at 3 factories. Now it's at like 8 factories. So he's got a ton of production. So it's going to be a lot harder for Kryok to bust anywhere. But look at supplies, 129 to 129. But it looks like the majority of the supply for Dandy is in vultures, whereas it seems like the majority of the supply in Kryok is like tank Goliath.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, though, it's going to be kind of hard for either player to do much. The problem here for Dandy is that he doesn't really have access to the top left side of the map. He's only really on this bottom right side, and he really doesn't have that many units. I mean, this is quite a lot of units, actually, for Danny, and I wonder, Cryoc, he doesn't... I feel like
Oh,
Cryoc
no.
is totally caught out of position. He's going to lose these tanks for free. I don't know how many units Cryoc has at his main base.
No.
Staging up on the low ground, I feel like Danny's just going to bust here, and he's going to get into Cryoc's main base, and what's Cryoc going to do? He has to basically abandon his contain at Dandy's base. I feel like Dandy just randomly pulled a win out of the hat.
Yeah, it looked like Kryok was in such a dominant position. He had tanks on the high ground, but it was only 4. Meanwhile, as I was saying, Dandy had so many vultures, and then he catches 4 for free, and now he's the one set up right outside the natural. And when you're in a position like this, there's no chance of breaking it. There's just way too many tanks. We don't know if Dandy has +2 weapon, but it's going to be pretty soon. And unless Kryok has Wraith just magically flying somewhere, this is going to be Dandy stealing game 3 and going to be going up against Boa White in the winners match. And it looks like that's the case. I think Kryok is trying to come from the back, but it's too late at this point. Look how many tanks there are. There's 10 tanks. Meanwhile, vultures can kill these 3 tanks. So those are all gone. I think with these tanks going down, that's just going to be game over. Now he can just rally vultures to top middle.
Yeah, this is totally over. I mean, it's so crazy that Kryok was in such a good position, but he just didn't siege up the correct spots to really put the map in a chokehold there and like solidify his position. And Dandy found the one weak spot and just completely smashed it and went right into this deadly contain right here. And really, there's so little Kryok can do about this now. He has Wraiths out, and Dandy has no Goliath supporting these tanks, so slowly but surely this Wraith might be able to break this contain, but I mean, who cares, because Kryok's losing all his mining SCVs at his 3rd. He's gonna probably lose mining SCVs at his 4th. I don't even know if he has that many. And it's just, yeah, I mean, this looks really impossible for Kryok to get out of. He doesn't even have drops. He has nothing. He's literally relegated to this, and he just leaves the game.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Kryok looked like he was in a good position, but it ends up being Dandy making it out, and he's going to be going up against Boa White. But very scary. Kryok actually looking much stronger than I was anticipating versus someone like Dandy. I thought for sure Dandy was the clear runaway winner here, but not the case. So Kryok definitely a threat here, and if he can make it past Jaeyun, potentially we can have a rematch where he may be able to take out Dandy in the decider match. So now we've got Boa White versus Dandy. Oh, okay. We are going to take a quick break before we get into that, though. But when we come back, Boa White versus Dandy in the winners match of Group A.
kind of going back. So that's going to be really crucial. If Lawball does not throw away all his units here, which it looks like, yeah, okay. GG. He definitely knows there's an expansion here because the drops are flying straight to it. So he's going to be able to basically shut this expansion down, which is huge because now Vadi has mid-right going. SPX just lost bottom left. So Vadi's ahead of base. And suddenly the tables have turned. He did see those drops and he's on an intercept course with these wraiths. And if these 4 wraiths actually kill the drops, it's going to be such a massive advantage for SPX.
Yeah, he intercepts all 3 of the dropships, and they can't unload because they're on dead space. One of them unloads, but really nicely done by
Vadi with a big win here, gets to deny SPX's base. The thing is, that was SPX's 4th base, and nice ledge. So these ledges, man, on this map, like the first time you see this map, this is the last thing you think about, but the more games we see on this map, we can see just how important they are.
Is this Lost Temple or is this Optimizer? Because there's a reason that people stop playing Lost Temple. It's because these ledges are just absolutely crippling. That's going to be another tank going down. I think once this tank goes down, that's going to be GG. There it is. SPX taps out, and it's going to be Vadi taking game 1. So now he's in the driver's seat to actually just make it out in 2nd place. Yeah, the Goliaths are going to have to balance being in the center of the map and also dealing with the race in the main. So this is the power of the race, is that they're just so mobile, and I don't see any Goliaths coming out. That upgrade is also probably range. It looks like it's just now kicked in. So
and now he's going to be able to completely clean this tank line here, and that's going to open up a possible attack route into SPX's natural. You can see Vadi already in position to capitalize on this. There's so many tanks moving up to SPX's natural, and SPX is not reacting with the rest of his tanks out in the middle of the map, and Vadi's going to get into killer position.
Doubling the supply of SPX. He's got more factories than SPX, despite having 4 in the early stages. It's now Vadi with like 10 factories, and SPX knows that it's over, and he taps out, and it's going to be Vadi moving on in 2nd place from Group E. Welcome back. We just saw Kryok actually fall to Dandy, but Dandy didn't look unstoppable. So there is hope for other players in this group. I thought Dandy was going to be the clear favorite, but now he's going to be going up against Boa White, who looked really good versus Jaeyun compared to last week. He's really on point. So this should actually be a very stellar matchup. So between these 2 players, who do you think is going to be, Gypsy? Did Boa White look convincing enough from last week, or is Dandy still looking super strong?
No, I mean, I think Boa's honestly, I think Boa's going to win. I mean, maybe
really?
Maybe it's a hot take for a lot of people, but Boa to me is looking stronger. That's it.
Well, he might actually be the one to take out Dandy, because Croc got pretty close, and I think that Dandy is
Croc dropped the ball on that game because he was in a really
yes, he was in a good spot, but TVT is about positioning, and he had a little bit too much in one spot, which can happen.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, or fortunately for Dandy, Dandy ends up being the one making it out. Now, I was looking at the VOD of us talking about Star Trek, but we'll skip past that. We got Boa White versus Dandy here. Dandy, yeah, look, I read some of the chat, losing subs in real time.
Yeah,
I think the majority of the people in the chat were with me, about at least 50%. So thank you guys in the chat for supporting me, and letting Gypsy know that there are some people that are not
that's some
huge
takes.
Star Trek.
Well, are you gonna say I'm a Trekkie all of a sudden, dude?
Yeah, you're a Trekkie.
That doesn't mean I'm a Trekkie.
You look like a Trekkie.
What?
Too, so. Yeah,
Excuse
I think
me?
so. Yeah.
What, the hair or the shirt or what? The Starcraft? The
just
good looks?
Everything, man. Just
the brain?
Everything. Yeah, no.
Game one's ready for you guys. Neo Sylphid, Dandy versus Boa. Let's get right into it, dude.
In the top middle, in the red, it is Boa White.
And in the bottom right, in the blue Terran pieces, it is Soul T Dandy.
Pieces. That was your BSL name, right? Pieces.
Pisces.
I know. I was just messing with you. Wanted to see your reaction.
I'm so
Unfortunately, we got no reaction.
Naikin's feeling himself after those tranky comments.
I could give another. Oh, we actually gonna have some shenanigans here. Proxy gate from Boa White. So this could be 1 gate or 2 gate. We already saw him 2 gate the wall, so that's a potential. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna be a 2 gate, but it could be very deadly here. And Dandy is known to gasless quite often, or 14 command center. We already saw in the TVT.
Yeah.
So let's see how many gates this actually is.
I'm actually surprised we get Sylphid here for this map. Zero being a bit lenient. Our god overseer Zero allowing the players to play a normal map to begin with, and normal map, but Boa already going for the shenanigans. As you said, proxy 1 gate. Now this isn't, and actually that was an 8 gate, so this gate is super fast, and he's gonna scout Dandy first, so he's gonna be able to get the gas steal on top of this. And again, this, I think we're not necessarily unanimous on what the response is here, Nyokin, but I think if Boa gets the gas steal here with the proxy, Dandy needs to put down a second Rax, and he's going to be on Marines only for a while. This is going to be so annoying to deal with. If he doesn't put down a second Rax here, for sure, 100%, he's going to be dying, because this is an 8 gate. The Zealots are going to be flooding in so fast. I mean, he's going to definitely need a bunker at least. It's going to be really hard for Dandy to hold this.
Well, okay, well that's not what you want to see, and this is another reason to veto Sylphid right there. You just glitch out an SCV on the egg, and I think Dandy, as you said, is in real trouble. Now, he is someone that scouts the middle consistently, but it looks like he's going to skip it this time, and that's going to be Heartbreak Hotel for him, because once the Zealot gets in, there's a real chance it's going to be 1 Zealot versus 1 Marine. Probe is being super annoying, but it's glitching out. It's within 1 hit. Cannot lose that probe. Probe does so much damage. And now that depot at bottom right means there's not a double path that the Zealot can, or that the Marines can run through, and the Zealot cannot. So this could actually be the beginning of the demise for Dandy here. Potentially Marine, if he can take out the probe, that's a huge loss for Protoss. Does not want to lose his probe at all. But now he's stuck. Oh, he somehow avoids disaster here. So
I mean,
let's see how much.
The thing is, Boa really needs to do damage here, because otherwise he's really far behind. He doesn't have his gas going, and already Dandy's getting some really nice damage off onto the Zealot and picks off the probe. Again, Boa, I don't think he's finding the kind of damage that he would like, but the second Zealot is going to join here, going to get on top of these Marines shortly, and look, Boa's going to cut them off. 1 Zealot on one side of the racks, the other on the other, but there's so much damage coming onto that 1 Zealot, 3 Marines, and 3 SCVs, just pumping the damage, and unfortunately, Boa White, I mean, the thing is, this 1 gate, like this 1 gate proxy on 8 with the gas steal is doing absolutely 0 damage, when honestly, this should be forcing way more out of the Terran. Look, he didn't even build a bunker, didn't build a second Rax, nothing. He just pulled a bunch of SCVs, killed the gas. That's definitely not how it's supposed to go. At least that's definitely not what Protoss is looking for when this happens. And Boa, the thing is, I mean, you know, we're Terran players. We're looking at it from Terran's point of view, and we're like, is he going to be able to defend? Is he going to be able to defend? But at the same time, is Boa going to be able to do the damage that he needs to with this? And he just didn't quite control well enough. He let the Zealots just take so much damage for free. It got the Zealot kind of trapped by the SCVs, and suddenly Dandy's in a really good spot.
Oh, but it's 2 Zealots, and he's not watching. Bunker's not done. 2 of the Marines are within 1 shot, and now this could be the opportunity that Boa White needs to get back into this game. 1 Marine down, soon to be a couple more. Those all have low health. So he's scrambling to build some more Marines. Can he get another? He does get another connection right there. Knocks that Marine down. But behind this, Boa White did end up going for a Nexus. So that was a bit greedy, but it looks like he's going to get away with it for now. Another Zealot doing the wide walk, as Artosis talks about, running by that bunker. Gonna see if he can pop a couple more Marines. There's one. Just jabs him right in his jaw, and he's gone.
Oh my god, that's sick micro from Boa, actually. Just following the Marines before they get pulled. This is really well executed from Boa, and honestly, what was looking to be a disaster situation for Protoss is rapidly turning back into his favor. I mean, Dandy took absolutely no damage, but kind of overzealously built that bunker and tried to expand instead of just waiting for his factory, or instead of pulling a couple more SCVs, just not quite executing that expansion as he would have liked to. And look, at this point, it seems like he's not even comfortable enough to put down his machine shell. I'm not sure if I think he's actually just making a vulture out of this factory, but Bo is already getting a couple Dragoons out. He already has his expansion out way faster than the Terran player does. And this is a really good situation to be with, or to be in as Boa. Now, the big question is, what's he going to follow this up with? Is it going to be a Robo? Is it going to be, well, definitely going to probably a Robo. I mean, I wonder if it's going to be Reavers. Is he going to just make an observatory and take a third base here? At this point, as Protoss, you really want to at least establish what the Terran's doing. He's going to be completely playing in the dark, and you can see Dandy's going for that 2 factory after the expansion. This Vulture is going to get a couple kills, but the 1 Dragoon pops out, and unfortunately, it's actually only going to kill 2 probes, so pretty decent there for Dandy, obviously. But the thing is, Dandy's expansion timing is a bit behind. He's going for 2 factory, though, and it looks like that's so weird because this second factory is so early that that's probably a Vulture upgrade.
Yeah, he may be just going for a run by potentially. 2-fact is a good follow-up for what he has seen. He knows that one of the gates is proxied, but now that the factories were delayed for so long that the goon count is going to get up to a ridiculous amount pretty quickly. So this may actually end up backfiring. Also remember, those Marines are low health. So if he tries to do some kind of tank Vulture with Marine push, not too sure if it's going to be too successful. Oh, that's only 3 SCVs repairing. That's 4 goons.
Oh,
luckily mines are in time, so Boa White's going to have to micro...
Mines are in time, but for what? What are these mines doing? I don't know why he went for mines here. This is terrible for Dandy. Look, he's just stuck inside his base. I mean, yeah, these mines are going to prevent Boa from just pouncing onto this tank, but the thing is, Dandy went for this really worthless upgrade. Like, you can't just go mines like this if you don't have map control, and it looks like you were right. Maybe he was gearing for some kind of tank Vulture build, but I think Dandy didn't actually oh, this is it. Okay, so it's a Starport follow-up.
Yeah, so Starport drop play, it would actually hit a really slick timing because the observatory is not done, but because he didn't go instantly, now I think that the Vultures are going to get there basically right when the observer pops out. It would be amazing if he was able to get in as the observer was moving across the map, but now I don't think that's going to be the case. But Boa White is doing something that a lot of Protoss players do, is they just feel invincible and they just rally more and more goons across the map, and that might actually come back to bite them. There's only 2 for defense. First shuttle is out. The dropship is going around the natural. I think the assimilator will catch it as it goes around. But for now, Boa is completely out of position. It looks like he's going to try and drop at the nat, just 1 and 3 into the main.
Oh my god, and the thing is, all these Vultures have a bunch of mines, so you can see why he went for that mine upgrade. It was for this drop. He also has Vulture speed. So actually, these Vultures are going to do a ridiculous amount of damage, laying down all their mines before they're contested by any Protoss units. And now this mineral field is ripe for the calling of the probes by Dandy, but fortunately Boa White very cleverly uses that shuttle to ferry in the Dragoons into position. That's such a high IQ move. You almost never see that. Boa defending this beautifully. Now he's gonna take a bunch of damage regardless, because that was 4 Vultures, so definitely this drop paid off for Dandy. But the thing is, in most situations you would see the probe pull from there. Protoss would not be mining from his main for a long time, but Boa White with the like 2 billion IQ play there, loading Dragoons up into the shuttle to ferry them into the mineral line that had no mines. That was actually, like, honestly, that was really beautiful from Boa. So very well played there, kind of averted a crisis, like a catastrophe. And Dandy behind that, he feels like he's done more than enough damage with this dropship to warrant going into 5 factories. Now, of course, from here, Terran can also choose to expand. It's not quite clear that he's going to commit to 2-base timing. He's got a Wraith out, so that doesn't help. He's getting even a second Wraith or maybe a dropship, not sure, but that definitely doesn't help with getting your timing attack out and an armory. So personally, I think we're going to see a third expansion with this 5 factory here.
Yeah, so 5-fact follow-up for Dandy. It is going to be a very strong attack because Boa White, he had everything going for him, but then the drop, dealing so much damage, is delayed pretty much everything. His gateways are delayed. Saw his Citadel just now completed. That means Arbiter is going to be, way far away. But luckily for him, sometimes all you need is Gateway Man to end up busting a 5-fact timing. So he is not dead in the water just yet. We don't see the Templar Archive. I still don't think that he knows what Dandy's doing either. And look at the lack of gateways. There's only 2 in the main, so a total of 3 gates for him. Now, Protoss units are pretty strong, but they're not that strong to try and take down 6 factories. Generally, Protoss needs something like 8 gate or more to deal with 6 fact. So we'll see if Boa White can actually end up stopping this. He's up 10 supply, but generally that's not where you want to be. And it looks like another drop coming. Maybe he has his eyes set on top left, but cannon should be up in time.
Yeah, the cannons are going to be up in time for Boa, and that's really crucial in stopping these drops. The thing is, he has a support bay, but it doesn't look like he actually has a Reaver. I don't know if he ever built it. Maybe it's in that shuttle, kind of chilling by Boa's main base. I'm assuming there's a Reaver in there, because otherwise that would be kind of crazy that he went for the support bay and didn't use it at all. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, Dandy, he has a bunch of factories, but look, he's actually, I think that's a command center building. I'm not too sure. The dropship is, yeah, that is a command center building. So he is going to go for the 3 base here. This drop finds the sweet spot, and the tank is just going to completely shrek this mineral line. And unfortunately, Boa is going to have such a hard time defending this now. He definitely has a shuttle though, so it should be coming in to deny this drop anytime now. The Reaver is out. Tank already took so many probes down. Unfortunately for Boa, it doesn't actually focus fire that clump of probes, but definitely the drop paying for itself. And Dandy, despite having a nice, okay, so he used that drop to drop the tank in the 3rd base and the 2 vultures in Boa's main base. And this is exactly what we were talking about, Nyok. And you know, the first week that we saw Boa play is that Boa sometimes seems susceptible to these kinds of multitask based plays from Terran, and it looks like he's succumbing to it here.
Yeah, taking a lot of losses to the drops, just a little bit too late with the cannons, but at least he was able to save, I think, quite a few probes from his main that time. Now supplies have shifted in favor of Dandy. This is really looking very dangerous for Boa. He's got to have basically the engagement of his life to try and stop this Terran army. Arbiter Tribunal is only halfway done. I'm a bit surprised that Dandy didn't try and push for the win with this, but in the end, it doesn't really matter what he does right now. He can almost do no wrong. It looks like he's just going to wait for Max. We know that Arbiters are nowhere near being done, so he's just going to capitalize on his small gain in probe kills, get some more econ, 8 factor coming in, and science facility's already done, so he's hitting his upgrades too.
Yeah, I mean,
here we go.
Going for an attack here, but this is the worst thing you can do against a late 3rd command center like this. He does get a nice drop off onto those first line of tanks that are going to get completely shut down, but now the 2nd line of tanks is there, ready to receive the Protoss units with their warm siege tank fire and kind of evaporate them. Boa luckily, or more like wisely, pulls back his Dragoons there in time, so he did trade pretty decently there. Basically traded most of his Zealots for tanks, for at least 5 tanks, and he does have a bunch of gateways here, and he's gonna have his Arbiter coming, so he's gonna have at least a response to this push. But looking at the supplies, it's not looking promising at all for the Protoss, and the base count is not there either. I mean, Protoss would definitely want to be on 4 bases without a doubt, sometimes even pushing 5 bases in this situation, but literally only on 3 bases now. It's going to be really, really hard for Boa to just even make enough units to stop this. Now, Dandy, the thing is, he's pushing a bit early here, 140 supply. You really want to get up to 160 plus for the Terran army to really start getting super cost effective against the Protoss army. And again, he's only on 1-0 upgrade, so not quite hitting his power spike just yet, but you can see that Boa's economy is struggling. He's just not producing that many units, and he doesn't have anything to really contest this, despite being a really early push. And now Dandy sieging up, Vultures in front. Vulture's going to receive these Zealots. The Zealots get on top of the tanks, though. Dandy not quite focused. Okay, you see Dandy beautifully focus firing the Dragoons and unsieging right after that, so he doesn't get any more siege fire onto the Zealots. And Dandy played that perfectly there, completely wiped the floor with Boa's army, and he's just going to go to the natural for a quick victory here, I think.
Yeah, this is going to be the game-ending move. There's just not enough for Boa. The Arbiter's also too late. Templars all just died, so that means there's no more Storm available. We don't know what's in the shuttle, but more than likely, just nothing. Now, once these tanks just set up here, what can he really do? There's not much. Units are just funneling in one at a time, and there's going to be a 10-tank contained. There's the Arbiter, but there's no more units doubling in the supply. Boa taps out. GG. Dandy's going to go up 1-0.
Yeah, GG, and I guess I'm gonna have to revise my previous statement there of Boa looking stronger than Dandy. I was clearly wrong about that. This game kind of, to me, shows that Dandy is he's just looking so strong, and I mean, what I expect to happen here is maybe I'll be like, Dandy's clearly looking stronger than Boa, and then game 2, Boa's gonna somehow come out of nowhere and completely smack Dandy, and then I'll be like, wow, well, I'm just jumping from winner to winner, really. But Dandy just held that proxy gate so cleanly, so easily, and then transitioned so much better than Boa did into the mid game. And unfortunately, just Boa had no response to that drop, got completely blindsided by that initial drop, and then even the subsequent drops just picked him apart, and he never really got his economy going. Just his build wasn't really there at all for him. So I think Dandy completely outplaying in this game 1.
Yeah, the harassment was just on point, but the goons, they were just out of position. Remember, there was like 8 sitting outside the natural of Dandy, and you're just asking for trouble when you have that many goons sitting there. A lot of Protoss players know that, and in response end up putting 2 to 4 goons in their main just for that specific reason, to prevent drops. If there were even 2 goons there, I think the drop does maybe a third of the damage. It would have done some damage, but that's an expensive investment to go dropship and starport and 4 vultures, and also get mines and speed that early in the game. So Boa, going into game 2, needs to be a little more respectful of some harassment type play. I think he was kind of autopiloting a little bit there, expecting Dandy to try and just push out of his natural, and that ended up never happening. So we'll see what Boa wants to go for as his map pick here. Sylphid looked pretty good until the drop started happening. Because of that, maybe he needs a bigger map, so we may see something like Polypoid again.
Yeah, Polypoid is definitely his go-to. I wouldn't be surprised if Dandy actually vetoed that map, and like you were saying, he was playing True Touch on stream on Optimizer, so I'm assuming Dandy probably prepared quite a bit on Optimizer with other players as well. I think Dandy has been practicing for the tournament, so maybe he doesn't actually fear Optimizer, so he might not ban it. He might just choose to ban. I mean, there's no reason really for a Terran player to ban Optimizer, because it's a fine Terran map, to be completely honest with you. So just in terms of from a tournament point of view, from a series point of view, if Dandy doesn't have to ban that map, that's a massive plus for him. He can use his ban on something like not Optimizer, but Polypoid, which I think would be a really good map pick for Boa. And you can see it definitely is his comfort pick. That's the map he went for against Terra as well. So I definitely think Danny's probably going to ban Polypoid. And if he bans Polypoid, I mean, there are other good maps for Protoss in the pool, notably Eclipse. And I mean, even Reap the Storm wouldn't be bad, but I don't think Boa has played too many games on Reap the Storm. So I'm guessing we're probably going to see Eclipse.
Yeah, probably Eclipse or Polypoid if Polypoid didn't get banned. Eclipse is a pretty standard map, pretty good map, one of the best 2-player maps I played on. We may even see Benzene. Honestly, a lot of the maps are pretty good for Protoss. If you can get into late game, Carriers, Arbors, super deadly on Benzene, super deadly on Eclipse. I agree that I think Reap the Storm might not get picked, but that's still a good map for Protoss too. So we'll see what it is. There it is. It is Polypoid. As expected, a bit surprising that Dandy didn't ban it. But maybe he's just thinking about, well, I don't want to play on Benzene, for example, and didn't think about what map actually Boa wanted to play on. So we're going to get into game 2 here. It's going to be Polypoid, Dandy versus Boa. So in the top right, we have our Terran player up 1-0. If he wins this, he's getting out in first. It is Dandy.
In the bottom left, one of the 2 last North American players. It is Boa White. And apparently, getting word here from our lovely producer Zero that Dandy actually banned Bubbles, which I think is just a I don't play this map ban, which is fair enough. Now, it's surprising to me that Boa gets Polypoid. And Polypoid, it's definitely not a bad Terran map by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, it's a pretty good Terran map. But it's just such a hard map
to play TVP on, and you cannot go for really like what Dandy did last game. You just cannot do that. Like, you really need to go for a very economic build. I'm not talking about the drops, but like the going 5-6 factories before your third base on this map is not good, because you're not pressure, like you're not really you're not threatening any kind of push, right? Like, it's just so hard to do timing pushes on this map, and Boa clearly has just time and time again picked this map. So I think if Dandy was a bit more honed in on what his opponents were doing, I think probably would have banning Polypoid would have made a lot of sense. But again, it's not a bad Terran map, but and Dandy does look stronger than Boa. And the thing is, drops can work on any map, especially Polypoid. There's a lot of bases, there's a lot of ways to getting into the main base. So that being said, Dandy can definitely pull this off, but I think Boa, if there's one map he's gonna definitely, he's the most favored to win on, it's definitely this one.
Well, speaking of favored builds, there is a 12 Nexus, and that's going to be super econ for him.
Yeah.
And going up against someone like Dandy who loves gasless expand, this is going to be just a fantastic build. It is gasless for Dandy, and that means that there's no chance of it getting busted by Marines. That means that Boa can just skip actually building units in the early game. It may actually end up taking a third Nexus off of something like 1 or 2 goons. That's what a lot of players do versus me, is they just feel super confident in just a couple units, and they know that I can't do anything about it, so they take that third Nexus. So we'll see if that's what Boa's going to go for. Now, Dandy did scout him, and he sees the bad news that this is a 12 Nexus. This is not ideal for him. Now, what's the response going to be? Because 99% of the time I play gas. So what would you do in this scenario when you see this?
Well, firstly, Dandy's gonna be really, really sad, to say the least, about what he just scouted, because he actually didn't even go for a 15 command center. He made a Marine first, and so this command center is even slower than it normally would be. And it looks like Boa hasn't really cut too many probes, and he's already, like, he didn't go. The thing is, he did go for double gate here, so not the most greedy variation. Sometimes you see some Protosses even go for a robo. Now, because Boa actually scouted that Terran's expanding, you can see he's already resumed probe production, and because Dandy's command center is so late, I'm assuming already Boa's economy is already through the roof. Now, I think Terran has a couple of choices here. Unfortunately, one of the nice follow-ups to early command center like this, especially against 12 Nexus, is you can go for something like a 4 factory timing attack, because you don't need to get eBay and Academy as early, and you can kind of power a bit more. There's a bit more time before the Dragoons kind of hit your bunker. But in this case, I think he's far enough, because it's cross spawn, and because Dandy's command center was also delayed. I don't think 4 factory push or anything like that is really going to be effective here. The other nice way to play this is to go this, you make this double factory here, and you proxy a starport and try and go for like some kind of very early drop into an expand, or if not, you just take an expansion outright. But just in general, the builds are really, really, really rough for Dandy, and I mean, Terran really has to like pick the right path here. Protoss has much more wiggle room in terms of their build selection coming like in this specific situation, I feel like.
Well, this could be some type of tank vulture with a few Marines and maybe a medic, because that is 4 Marines at a bunker. He may actually use those later in a push. Looks like gas going down at the natural, so maybe no Academy either. So unlikely that there will be a push. Also, it's Polypoid, which means you're pushing uphill into the third base. So not a shock. Cybernetics is still spinning, but I think this is just because it is 12 Nexus. I don't think this is for carriers or anything, but it could be because he does have his gas at his nat already. So we may actually see some carriers. He is floating a decent chunk of gas too. This would be a pretty punishing build. 12 Nexus straight carrier. Does it get more punishing than that? This bunker might actually not. Okay, luckily Dandy does send down his 4th SCB. I thought he was only going to have 2. And double upgrades coming in again.
Yeah, these double upgrades I really am not a big fan of here. It looks like he's just going to go into vultures, but look, Boa already has his units outside of the base there. It's going to be hard to run by these Dragoons, and Boa, like last game, is just reinforcing a bunch of goons. Now, of course, the builds are much different from last game, so the timings are going to be different here, but Boa kind of risking himself. You know, despite the fact that last game he basically lost to drops, I think now he's going to pull back and go back to his base. So Boa definitely reacting to last game, has a robo, has an obs, and you're right, it's going to be 2-base carrier here, Nyokin, and I really like that choice from Boa, because if Dandy chooses to go for the mineral only, he's going to be in a world of hurt. He's not going to have access to that third gas to pump out the necessary Goliaths, and with this crazy econ here, Protoss can also double expand, get his third, get his fourth, with getting a really strong. The thing is though, Bo is not actually getting a very fast third, so maybe he won't have the strongest ground army to supplement these carriers, but so much time here for Boa to get these carriers up and running, and Dandy looks like he's gearing up to getting a third command center. He's playing very standard, but just in general, I think Boa's build here is looking really good.
Well, Dandy's moving across with some vultures, but we can see that the entrance is pretty much shut off because all the goons are here with a couple in the main. So he's already learned from last game. Now, what Dandy's looking for isn't necessarily to get some damage done. Sure, he wants to get damage, but doesn't necessarily have to get it. But now he sees there's nothing at the nat, or at the high ground base, which is unusual. When he comes up to top left here and sees there's nothing there either, that's when alarm bells are going to start going off for him. And what's most painful about this is there's no academy for him, so he can't scan, which means he has to guess, is this 2-base arbor or is this carriers? And if he thinks that it's arbors and it ends up being carriers, you know, that's a whole different beast. So this is going to be extremely painful. We see that the armory just now started for Danny, so 750 armory. To give you an idea of how delayed that is, it's about 2-minute delayed. That means he's going to have 1430 plus 2. And that means that he's going to be facing like 6 carriers at that point or more.
Yeah, you definitely want armory. That's the thing. This armory is so late, and you definitely need upgrades against carriers. You need both attack and defense upgrades. And look, he's going to take his third base here and going into a macro game. And it's just, without the third gas for such a long time, it's going to be so hard for Danny to get his factory count out, to get his upgrades going, to get a decent amount of tanks, and then to also get all the Goliaths that he needs against these carriers. So just from a builder perspective, Bo is looking really fine. Now, the one thing about Bo's build that's not the most promising is, like, his third base just now going down. He's probably going to double expand here. I would assume it's definitely the best play, but at the same time, if he does double expand, he's only going to be on these 4 gateways, and that is pretty scary. It is cross spawn though, so if definitely cross spawn Polypoid is definitely a map where you can get away with fewer units just defensively, but it's going to be so hard for Dandy once these carriers are up. Like you said, if he's going to have a 2-1 push timing, it's definitely going to be around the time Protoss gets 6 carriers, and we all know 6 carriers is crazy. 8 carriers is the magic number. It's almost impossible for Terran to really contest that many carriers, especially if Protoss has an economy behind it. You really want to get some damage done onto the Protoss before they hit that timing. It's basically like Terran versus Zerg. If you let Zerg basically get up to 4 bases uncontested and just start pumping out ultras, it's so hard to win from that position. Carriers are kind of the same ticking time bomb, basically. If you let Protoss just get a bunch of carriers and an econ and even mix in Templars, it's just so hard for Terran to do anything. You can see Dandy, I suspect he knows this is what's happening, because you can see the factory count is going up very quickly, but it's just so hard for him to afford everything and to get upgrades in the starport. It's just going to be really hard. But again, Boa only on 3 base. Okay, he actually does scan and he sees the carrier, but does he actually see it? Because you really have to be looking, and the carrier kind of went in later into the scan. So it's very possible that Dandy scanned really quickly, looked around, didn't see anything, and then looked away and didn't look back when he saw a little blip, because it's almost unnoticeable. So I'm not even sure that Dandy knows this is carriers. But again, Boa needs to try and get a 4th base going for this to really look dominating, and he is on mid left. So this is gonna be really hard for Danny to win this position. But if he does, he's basically a god, honestly.
Yeah, so Dandy needs to start thinking about getting 4th and 5th base. Carriers are really not strong until they reach critical mass. So while they are down in the lower numbers, there he goes. He's going to take the 4th base, get his econ rolling even more, get that 3rd gas. It's so important to have 3 to 4 gases, Terran.
Yeah.
We see that he is struggling to even get his upgrades. He's going to be getting +2 pretty soon, but look at how gas starved he is. He's got 8 factories all on 2 gas, 3rd gas coming in pretty soon. But Boa's decided that 4 carriers is more than enough. He started to move them across the map. And Polypoid, even though there is a lot of open space, there's dead space right where he's about to be. And once they sit over here, it's almost impossible for carriers to, or for Goliath to ever engage these carriers.
Yeah, Boa hitting a nice timing here. The 4 carrier timing now. Dandy already has Goliath range, which is really good for him. And if he kills a Goliath, if he kills a carrier for free, that's absolutely massive. Boa donating a carrier, that is terrible. Boa's gonna go for the bust here, though. It's gonna be really strong. There are no vultures to help with the zealots, so the zealots are gonna he's gonna lose another carrier, unfortunately. But Boa gets on top of the tanks with the zealots. These zealots are cleaning up quite well. The only problem is he's only on 2 carriers, and I mean, the thing is, Dandy has no more Goliaths left. He only has tanks, but a lot of Protoss forces are basically diminished here, and this is going to be a hold.
He might get another.
Dandy, if he gets another one, that would be absolutely disastrous. I mean, it's already disastrous losing your first 2 carriers like that. It's just, and he's going back to try and snipe this Goliath with just two carriers, the 1 carrier in front.
Oh my!
What is Boa doing, man?
Oh my gosh!
What was that? That was absolutely just horrendous from Boa, and Dandy's going to be in a really good spot here now. The problem is, again, Dandy does not have a 3rd base. I would really like to see if Boa wants to continue making carriers here. He definitely needs to put down another Stargate, if not 2, because he's in a what is he doing, dude?
Well, he's taking a 4th base, but Dandy's taking a 5th base. Bottom right already has the gas up in mining. Was that just a hidden base for him, bottom right? Because there isn't much SCVs down there. It looks like he only has the refinery. So Dandy actually has 4 gas versus a Protoss that stayed on 2 bases for a long time, despite going 12 Nexus. Like, the gateway count is non-existent. It's 4 with 2 Stargates, or maybe 5, versus a Terran that's about to have 2-1. Remember, I was saying 2-1's going to kick in around 14:30 if he hit his science facility timing. That means we're 1 minute away. He has 9 factories or so. Protoss just lost 3 of the most expensive units in the game, and he didn't even wipe out that many tanks. So Dandy now has a 20 supply. Jeez, that is 11 factories, and that's what you can do when you've got a hidden base at bottom right. And now Dandy is looking to put a killing move onto Boa, who has a very pitiful ground army.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see Protoss winning from this position. Like, he only has 3 carriers here. It's still going to be very hard for Terran to attack up this high ground, mind you, because carriers with, like, you know, a couple Dragoons supporting on a high ground. But Boa's not even in position to meet this army. He's just going to sack his 3rd, and that means he's going to sack his natural eventually. He's going to go for a counterattack here, though, and there's probably very little at Dandy's 3rd base, but I think Dandy's going to be okay with this because, you know, as we keep talking about it, he has a ninja expand at bottom right, so his economy is more than okay. It's going to be fine tanking this. He has another base mid right also, and he's just going to trade for Boa's 2 bases here and getting into a really solid position outside of Boa's base. But again, Boa still has a very, very threatening counterattack, so he's going to be able to kill all those reinforcing units. But there's just so many Goliaths here, and the Dragoons are kind of hitting turrets, not really hitting the Goliaths. But again, so many Dragoons here. Dandy's going to have a hard time cleaning this up, but at the same time, Dandy's death push is right outside of Boa's natural. And I mean, there's just so many Goliaths here. It's very possible for Boa to just run his carriers back. He probably has 2 more carriers queued up, almost finished at his Stargate, so he's up on 5 carriers.
Yeah, but he's about to be sitting on the production. Like, there's nothing for Dandy. Like, he didn't turn around, and now he's about to have carriers and goons sitting on top of everything. It looks like the vultures may actually save the day and get a few connections here. But also dangerous is that the armory's at the natural. If that gets focused down, no more Goliaths being able to be built. But it looks like Dandy's now turning around. He's got a 60 supply lead. There's a second armory in the main, so sniping the armory is not a big deal. And still, Boa has no idea about bottom right. So even though he wiped out the mineral only, he's feeling pretty good about that. Unknowing to him, he's still on 4 base mining. He still has 4 gas. He comes to mid right. There's really not that many carriers. What is it, 3? And he's going to lose these carriers. And I think with these carriers going down, this is just going to be game over.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally over from this position because Boa lost so much of his economy. He's down like half of Dandy's supply. He has 2 carriers left over, probably 2 more queued up, but definitely going to take a long time for those to come out. And I mean, Dandy's sitting nicely on 2-1, possibly 3, only 2-0, but he's going to definitely have at least 3 attack and maybe 1 upgrade. 1 armor upgrade kicking through here, so definitely not the most oppressive of upgrades. But I mean, look at Boa's base, it's pitiful. He has a bunch of gateways but only 2 stargates, and his only standing army I think is outside of his natural with 2 carriers. So how's this gonna stop the max Terran army? Well, I'll tell you what, it's not. And Danny's gonna walk in here, gonna kill mid left, and then probably gonna go to Boa's main, and I think we're gonna be seeing a GG anytime now.
Yeah, an unstoppable army. It looks like Boa has found bottom right, but there's already mines set up. So he's going to eat some mines. Goodbye, Goon. Goodbye, Zealot and Dark Templar pretty soon, too. Looks like he didn't find bottom right. He actually still only thinks mid right is the only mining base. So still just going to be on 3 base mining, even if this base gets mined out. And now, well, actually, Boa still has bottom middle. He has top left, too. If the supplies were closer, if it was like 150 to 190, I think he would still have a shot. But since it is 190 to 90, there's just no hope here. These DTs can't even get in and deal damage. Dandy's turning around now. There's 1 carrier. 2 Goliaths can kill this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard. Like, Danny's gonna smash Boa, honestly. Like, retrospectively, clearly not a surprising result. I think Boa looked much better in his PVZs than his PVTs, but this, I mean, unfortunately, this was pretty dreadful, honestly, from Boa. Just kind of went for the carriers and just donated the first couple ones, despite honestly having a pretty massive build order advantage. I just don't really understand how this happens. And Dandy is just looking on point. He played this game beautifully, actually. Just the ninja expand with the fact that, you know, it's really hard to get up to 8 factories and upgrades, and you can see, I mean, he didn't even have the armor upgrade, so still his upgrade's kind of struggling, and that's a result of not having that 3rd gas to work with right away. But as the GG comes through, but Dandy definitely played that very beautifully, just kind of standard by the book macro, and completely dismantled Boa, despite the fact that Boa, honestly, I mean, it's kind of weird because that game doesn't make it look like it, but Boa definitely had a builder advantage, and he definitely had the right kind of overall build strategy going into it. That is, going into the carriers, expecting Danny to expand to the 3rd base, the mineral only, and also having the 12 Nexus economy behind it. But somehow, just with the first 4 carriers, just lets them get sniped for free, and that was just not what you want to see.
Yeah, a huge mistake from Boa there. But you got to give props to Dandy, because as soon as he saw the carriers were out of position, instantly took his 8 Goliaths and jumped on them immediately. He knew how dire a situation it is, where he's about to get busted at his 3rd base. He's got carriers on the high ground, which is going to, you know, mess up the AI of the Goliath. So real props to him. And I love the ninja base at bottom right, went unscouted the whole time. And Boa is going to fall down into the decider match, so he's not eliminated just yet. And Danny's going to make it out in 1st place. And now we're going to go into a quick break. But before that, we want to shout out our sponsors, Liquipedia, Blizzard, Esports Fun, and the viewers out there. If you want to support us, you can consider becoming a Patreon. You can follow us on Twitch. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow me and Gypsy on Twitter or Twitch too. We appreciate that. But we're going to come back with our losers match in just a couple minutes. It's going to be Jaeyun versus Kryok. equalizes here, which it looks like he is because there's 4 Zealots, that's a dead hatchery. I can't believe that 1 Zealot is going to end up taking a hatchery. And as you were saying, Speed should be coming in soon, but she's not even mining gas. So this is literally just pure Ling. Now both of the holes at the entrance are just clogged. There's no way that Lings are going to get in. And
I mean, this is about as good as it gets for Denzi. I think Oya pushed out a bit too early. He's trying to get that pressure onto the Zerg economy, but this is not even a control group of Dragoons, and Denzi's got like 9 Mutalisks, so...
This game, but generally once Zerg starts camping, they need to have all their bases already set up. So for her to not have her set up already, she's still in a bit of trouble. Oh my God! The males from the Archon's just sitting there, just gonna blast down all of these Mutas lists. And this is 11 Mutas all caught. They somehow 7 of them survive. So here come the Hydras. They're pushing out, but remember this is 0-0 versus 2-1, almost 2-2. So you can see how strong these Zealots and Goons are dealing with these Hydras. They just fall one after the other. 5 Sunkens behind these 5 Hydras. That's all Cadenzi has, and I think this is going to be it. There's just too much Protoss. It's going to get more kills, man. That's going to be the Zealot glitched out is not helping. Okay, actually, elevators and a Goon there, but those are getting all splashed. If one more Fire Bats comes out like that and gets off 2 more hits, that's going to be a lot of probes to fall. 1 goes down. Okay, luckily, catastrophe avoided for Boa right now.
It looks like Terra doesn't actually have his Vultures in position to defend these tanks, so Terra's going to lose a couple of units himself. Where did Terra's Vultures go? Did they all die to mine? Did they just all run back to the base? Boa's going to be able to clean this up for free when this...
Loaded up Reaver, that's going to be taking out these 2 tanks easily for free. Here come the Zealots in the front. Goodbye, tanks. And with these 2 tanks going down, I think this is probably going to be the end of the game for Terra. He's just running out of steam. We don't see a 3rd base either. Armor is getting dangerously low. Can't lose that unit. That's one of the most expensive units in the game.
But as I say that, the recall comes in at the fresh base. It's going to be able to kill the command center for free here. And Terra really, his only choice at this point is to go for a counterattack. There's just so many Protoss units. Terra's positioning is perfect here for this fight. But the thing is, he just doesn't have that many units. They're going to be very cost efficient.
Well, but there's just too much Protoss at this point. He's mined out in his main and his natural. You can see how desperate he is. He's trying to float the bottom right, but that was already a Protoss base. So GG, there is the Reaver that I was waiting for. Now Boa has to be careful moving into high ground like that. The Reaver's not firing for...
Oh my God! Dude, he killed the shuttle as the Reaver got popped back in, so really unfortunate there from Boa. Completely mismicroed that. Yeah, here comes the shuttle. Like you said, the positional advantage playing here. It's so easy for Oyaji to get in here. He's gonna kill so many probes with this. I mean, okay, luckily Boa pulls... Oh my God, that Scarab actually connected somehow, and we know just how much Boa is hurting in the econ department.
He's down 20 supply in the army value. Now this is one way you can get back, is if he gets a catch onto that Reaver, but there's a second one already there. Oh no, no, they both go down. Oh no, one of them goes down, but the 2 Reavers on the high ground are now just gonna lay. Hey man, look at that juicy shot onto those 5 Goons. 3 of them die instantly, and this is gonna be Oyaji easily holding Boa's attack, and this is more than likely gonna be GG. There it is. So Oyaji is gonna move in to the round of 16, taking a decisive victory over Cadenzi, and then a decisive victory over Boa.
So I think Boa, if he goes right now, he has a really strong timing to bust this base. He's going in, the 2 shuttles dropping on top of the tanks and the Vultures, but there's such a good Sim City from Terran. Most of the Zealots are just hitting bunkers, hitting depots. The Goons are also hitting depots.
But the command center is going to fall down, and if those Goons actually got onto the tanks, this game is 100% over. But because they did,
oh my God,
they're just going to get the command center really low. Here comes the shuttle. He's getting on right on top of the tanks, and with all these tanks behind him on the low ground, they're really not going to be landing their shots effectively.
Well, it looks like Boa is actually going again to attack this base, but it's really not that big of an army.
Yeah, oh, great storms blanketing the majority of the tanks, but you can see the power of +3 weapon despite... But Terran's getting closer and closer.
Oh!
Oh, there it is. Oh, it's a beautiful one. It's beautiful.
The mines just completely demolished that Protoss army. But look, and Boa's just gonna attack here, but this is the worst possible attack for Protoss. The Terran's just sieging down all the Protoss units. Massive storm. going down onto all the tanks, but that's just one storm you really need to change. Still, one of the worst engagements he could go for, but he has so many units and there's just so few vultures to deal with the zealots that are finally getting on top of the tanks. The storms go off, everything's going off, and I think at this point, I mean, I think Terran's been broken, man.
Yeah,
Terran is so poor right now. This is all he has left.
Yeah, it's 3 tanks, a handful of vultures, tons of D-Matrix available. Oh, that's a great EMP. But unfortunately, there's just too much Protoss Arbiter and more Zealots coming in through the back. Another great EMP. So Terra may survive for now, but the standing army is 1 tank, 7 vultures, and no, there's just too many goons. This has got to be it now. It has to be. There's no more money. There it is. GG. We are back, and we just saw Dandy get out in first place, knocking down Boa White. But now we're going to have our NA Hope, Jaeyun, going up against Kryok, who actually looked surprisingly strong versus Dandy. And he's been looking pretty good in the round of 32 too. We've seen a couple Terrans make surprising moves throughout the round of 32. Remember, Kare almost knocked out True Touch in the round of 32. So maybe Kryok can pull out a victory here. And then we would have a rematch between him and Dandy where he had a real potential. Oh, no, Dandy already made out. He'd be facing Boa White. But Kryok looked really good in the round of 32, taking out Ghosted Dark, playing that passive style. And you and I were talking about in the break is that one of the weaknesses maybe of playing Boa White is if you can just get to the upgrades, maybe you can end up taking him down. So Kryok has a real shot getting out if he ends up taking down Jaeyun, but Jaeyun is a formidable opponent.
Yeah, I think Boa is going to be actually happier with playing against Jaeyun than Kryok, honestly, after that performance against Dandy. I don't think he's feeling too comfortable in PvT. Now, Dandy is definitely, I mean, he's on form. Those games actually very much impressed me. That he's been playing very solidly all throughout today. The only game he dropped was against Kryok, like the 2 factory there, and anyone could drop games like that. So Dandy looking really on form when he's out of this group. But now Kryok versus Jaeyun, I mean, Kryok again, kind of one of those silent killers. He's just been in many BSL seasons, and he's just always solid. So it's kind of hard to discount him out of any series, but definitely to me, looking at this game right now, I feel like Jaeyun's the clear favorite here, because I just think Jaeyun, I mean, from what I've heard, Kryok has a hard time dealing with the 2 hatchery builds, and Jaeyun's just kind of on top of a lot of the ZVT meta. But, you know, I'm willing, again, last time I called Boa the favorite, and Dandy sure showed me. So I think this could be an opportunity for Kryok to do the same. The game 1's ready is going to be on Polypoid, Jaeyun versus Kryok. Loser of the series gets eliminated. So both players playing for their tournament lives.
In the top right, in the red, repping NA, it is Jaeyun.
In the bottom right, in the blue Terran, the German Terran, it is Kryok. And yeah, the pieces, dude. Oh yeah, you said Pisces, pieces. That's what you're talking about. But I was gonna say, yes. I stole that from Day 9. Day 9, the original user of the whatever the pieces reference the chess. I think it's a pretty cool thing. Just thought you should know.
Well, what do you think Kryok's gonna go for? He's got bottom right. It's Bombastoid. He can wall off bottom right.
Oh my god!
You were talking about how hard it is, or how hard it is for him to deal with 2-hatched Zerg. I don't know a single Terran on this earth who thinks it's easy to deal with 2-hatched Zerg. I think one of the ways around it is to wall off, get your econ rolling, kind of mind game them. Is he going mech? Is he going bio? So what do you think about Kryok going for that? It looks like we're past that point because the depot's in the main.
Yeah, well, clearly you're wrong about walling once again. So, not. No, I'm just kidding.
Who won last series? What was your prediction?
Yeah. Also, didn't we see people wall in the? Who walled in the round of 32? Someone walled in. Oh, yeah, wasn't it Terra or something? Oh no, Terra walled against. Terra walled against Zealot in that show match. Remember that?
Yes, in the show match.
Yeah, he had a good chance that game, but obviously Zealot's really strong. But yeah, I don't know why we're talking. Maybe we'll have a repertoire of how many times we see walling in TVZ, but this is not going to be one of those games, and both players going for pretty standard openings. Now, Jaeyun has been practicing this matchup quite a bit. I think in general, I don't know. I don't know how comfortable he's gonna be feeling here. I think against Cryoc, he's probably gonna feel a bit confident. I know for a fact Jaeyun has practiced a lot of ZVT because, surprise, surprise, yours truly has played quite a number of games against him this week. So definitely has that practice in the matchup, but I think not feeling the most confident right now in terms of his Mutalisk micro, for example, and that's really important in the 2-hatch gameplay. But you know, he's still really strong just in general. Jaeyun's like just such a strong player, and he can whip out a lot of stuff. And one of the things that he does so well, him and notably Crossy and probably Striker too at this point, because they literally all play the same. It's literally the same player. I think Jaeyun is probably a bit more the more varied among the three, but they're all very strong. But you know what they really do well is deny the scouting with just drones. They actually don't even make lings, and Cryoc correctly already. Okay, actually, I thought he moved out with a couple Marines, but just denying a lot of scouting. You can see this is actually the second SCV from Cryoc coming in just now, seeing that this is going to be a 2-hatchery play. Not that that's going to change his build too much, because at this point he's getting his third depot, and now he can choose to branch off into a gas or a second Rax. It looks like Kryok's going to go for that second Rax here. So very standard from both players. I'm really just, to be honest, I haven't seen Kryok play TVZ too much. And this is first game is going to give me a glimpse into what kind of style he likes playing, and I'm eager to see that, because I know exactly how Jaeyun likes to play, and I don't know how Kryok is going to match up against him just yet.
Yeah, so we have the second Rax coming down for Kryok. Refinery timing is a bit fast. That means that it could potentially be a fast Marine medic push, but Academy is not started, so just a lot of gas going to be coming in for Kryok. Now, versus this particular style, how many Raxes are you going up to? Is it 3? Is it 4? I know you sometimes go 5. What number do you like? Also consider that Zergs these days are going for a fast third hatch, as opposed to a few months ago, you know, they were going on Mutas first and then building the third hatch.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to keep this concise, Naokin, because I could go on a big gypsy rant about that question. But
let's just 3 or 4 or 5 Rax.
Given how Cryoc opens, I think the best way here to play is go for 3 Rax, get your factory, and then add your 2 more Rax. But definitely not before. Not like I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 4 Rax here and he plays extremely aggressively. I don't think it's the best. Given how he opened, in terms of his natural command center was a bit delayed, he made a bunch of Marines. I think 3 Rax is just a bit more stable here than 4 Rax. Because you remember, you have to get your eBay, you have to get turrets out. So, long story short, 3 Rax for sure, for now.
Yes, I'm also on the 3 Rax train. You know, a lot of old school players have been coming back. Midian, for example, Rhett, Gentleman, PG came back. We even see Breakdown, and I'm forgetting the other PG member. It's not coming to me.
Yeah, the dinosaurs are coming out of the ground again. Dude.
But someone that has also come back just recently is Mr. Rhett, TOT Rhett, Liquid Rhett. And he's talking to me about how 4 Rax is a punishing build versus this. And I'm telling him, like, man, 4 Rax, you can't support it yet.
You know what? Rhett plays on Europe though. He doesn't play the big bad Korean micros mutas. I'm gonna say that.
Well, versus this particular opener, it's pretty good because Zerg spends a lot of resources on their hatcheries. And if you were to move out with 4 Rax and put pressure on from the get-go, they all of a sudden can't, you know, also build Sunkens and can't also build a ton of Lings. So it does put up a bunch of pressure onto Zerg. Now we see that the first few Mutalists are out into the middle of the map. Looks like somebody's FP view is not working correctly. But Kryok does try and engage the Mutas. Now you can see there's not a lot of Mutas right now.
Yeah.
So Kryok's push is pretty dangerous, but he is just sitting there for now.
The problem with going 4 rack, the thing is, because he went 3 racks here, his Marine range is actually going to be on time. But the problem with 4 racks is that you actually delay your Marine range, and if you don't delay your Marine range, you're just completely skipping turrets. So I think just in general, like right here, he's going to push out. I don't think range just yet finished. You can see he's having a really hard time against these Mutalisks, and Jaeyun gets really nice shots off, and that's going to be massive. And behind this, Kryok should be starting his factory. You can see the Academy is still blinking. Nice timing on the factory, but he's going to lose so many Marines here, and he's only on 3 racks. He hasn't even started 4th or 5th racks, obviously. This was kind of really overzealous here from Kryok, because just losing all those Marines, and a big part of it was he only had 2 medics with that group, and he never had range, didn't keep his Marines clumped up, and now he's on 3 racks production. Teching, Jaeyun has everything going for him. And honestly, Jaeyun, once he gets past this early phase of dealing with the Marines and getting into the macro phase, this is by far his most strong, like his strongest part. The strongest part of his game is getting into late game. So Kryok in a world of hurt right here.
Yeah, now that the move out was just instantly denied, Kryok's in big time trouble. But luckily, because he did not go into heavy racks, because he did not skip out on his tech, his factory is still quite far along. But as you were saying, Jaeyun is just a monster once he gets his econ rolling. Muta's coming into the natural, going to snipe a few SCVs and really took almost no damage. So they're going to come in for round 2, snipe some more. And facing Jaeyun when he's already gotten 3 bases for free, it's almost an impossible task. He could even start taking a 4th base. He's one of those players that loves to hide base. Look at the Mutas just obliterate the mineral line. Well, now what do you do as Kryok? There's no response. He's just trying to get some damage done. Well, look at the amount of Marines. Because he's on 3 racks, it's what, 1 control group versus a control group of Mutalisks.
Yeah, and there are only 2 turrets there. Kryok is going to get a nice interception onto these Mutalisks. He does snipe 1. There's a bunch of them really low. Another one goes down, but we already saw Jaeyun's Hydra Den in his base, so I'm assuming lurkers are going to be out. You know, they're morphing already, and Kryok doesn't really have that many units to threaten any of these bases. It's only 1 control group of medic and marine, so really only 8 marines. That's not going to be enough to kill anything here, and Jaeyun's going to very safely get his 3rd going, get lurkers out, and because his lurkers are out, that frees up his Mutalisks to go and harass the Terran. So if Kryok skimped out on a couple of his turret defenses, I mean, Kryok's going to find a nice opening here. It's only 1 sunk. The lurker is a bit out of position here. 2nd lurker coming in. It's going to be a bit annoying for Jaeyun to deal with this, but he pulls the Mutalisks back, and nice micro there from Kryok, but Jaeyun's going to clean this up fairly easily, and at this point, Kryok has nothing going for him in terms of pressure out onto the map. His 1 tank finishes here. Thing is, Kryok lost a lot of Marine medic this game, so he only has 1 control group here. And look, Jaeyun he still has 7 Mutalisks left over. He has a bunch of lurkers running here. Now, Jaeyun, if he randomly loses these lurkers, which he won't, playing very passively, very wisely, burrowing there, and his hive is already done. Defiler mound on the way. Okay, his Defiler mound just now started, so still Kryok has some time here to mount a push with these 2 tanks, but definitely if he waits for his vessel, which I think he is going to, it's gonna cut his push time quite short, and Jaeyun might even have Defilers out in time, so it's gonna be really close.
Yeah, tank push is going to be coming pretty soon, but the lurkers are going to buy a lot of time. Also the Mutas, and so Kryok's got on a window to try and make something happen, because Jaeyun's starting to take top left. Generally, once Zerg gets 4 base econ going, they just become a whole different beast. If you don't have any sort of control of the flow of the game, it's just going to spiral out of control. So here comes Kryok. He's going to try and siege, but look at the Mutas just dealing so much damage to these Marines, picking off a medic, picking off a few Marines. High ground lurkers not taking full damage. 1 actually gets popped, so it looks like Jaeyun for now is going to retreat just a little bit, but he's trying to buy as much time as possible. The Defiler should be about a minute or so away. And then I think he'll just be pretty much fine.
Yeah, this is a scary push though from Kryok. He has 4 tanks, 1 vessel, and like, yeah, the thing is, in normal games, this looks pretty terrible for Terran. But again, it's a tournament game, and it is Zerg, and it is Zerg versus Terran, and it's very easy for Zerg to just kind of blunder away a couple units and not manage the situation right at all. And if that happens, like Jaeyun already lost a bunch of lurkers there for free. His defiler's already out. If this gets irradiated, okay, he has 2 defilers. If somehow Cryoc finds some miraculous kind of pathing here and kills everything. No. Okay, he has so many defilers actually. So at this point, I don't see Cryoc ever breaking through this. So you know, Cryoc still making tanks. He needs to think about putting down his second starport and taking in a base, but I think it might be too late for that already in these tanks. I mean, the tanks can still be useful here, but it's really hard to find value once the defilers are out. He's gonna siege outside of Jaeyun's base, but Jaeyun walked a bunch of lurkers outside of his base. No defiler supporting them, donated a bunch of lurkers. Suddenly he has no lurkers that is natural to defend. That means he's gonna have...
Did he miss consume? Because the filers have... Okay, there it is. It finally completes. If those tanks
he doesn't have a Nidus at his third, though. So for a second here, he doesn't have lurkers. Only 1 lurker in position, actually. Okay, so he's going to be fine. Sorry, Nayokin. I was going to say, but I think Cryoc probably in his head, he thinks there's no longer a timing, so he's not actually trying to quit. He's getting a second factory, though. What do you think about that?
Well, if he starts going into mines, that's a way to get back into the game where you're just going to have super cost-effective trades. But he also needs to build the tank count too, because once the Zerg just starts running rampant all over the place, you need to have some type of static D where your tanks are just sitting somewhere in critical mass, like 5 to 7 of them just shelling on whatever's coming at him. Now, surprisingly, supply is pretty high for Cryoc, 120 to 74. It's kind of too bad that he didn't attack top left and instead had tried to attempt to attack top right, because he at least could have busted mid left. Now another straggler defiler just falling. Now I don't want to say the replay is broken, but I want to point out that Jaeyun is floating 1600. We also kept looking at his third base and none of the larvae were being moved, and it was highly weird that Cryoc didn't attack with his tanks. Also, what are these tanks doing?
Yeah, I think we got another broken live game, man. This is so insane. I think we're gonna try and get into Jaeyun's first-person view here, because he does have his little streams here in the game. So okay, thank God for that, because we get to see what's actually happening. You can see he's actually spending his minerals and resources and everything. Kryok looks like he went to attack top left, but good for Jaeyun. He had a defiler and a lurker in position, and I think here Jaeyun's actually struggling a bit to get the ball rolling in terms of his econ and everything. He's only on 100 supply. He has a couple units here and there. He's not really completely solidified in his position, and around this time you really want to just be making a bunch of hatcheries and getting into macro mode, and it's hard. He's defending basically a base with 1 defiler, 1 lurker. Look, his saturation at his natural is not that good. Saturation at his 4th base is non-existent. His 3rd saturation is probably going to be okay. Yeah, he has a decent amount of drones there.
Well, going back in the net.
Yeah.
Oh, the game's broken still.
Yeah. So you can see the game is definitely broken. I think we're going to have to cast from Jaeyun's first person here, which is, at least it's better than having the Nayokin and Gypsy podcast for another 10 minutes or so as we get the replay going. But we're going to actually see exactly what's happening. And Jaeyun finally finishes Plague, get some nice Plagues off. And at this point, I mean, I'm assuming Kryok's looking to take a couple of expansions. On the bottom side, you can see Jaeyun's going to start scouting there momentarily. Jaeyun still needs to get a couple more drones at top left. Luckily for him, it looks like Terran still doesn't have that base at 6 o'clock. You can kind of assume that probably Kryok also has his mineral only. You can see Kryok is actually setting up there. And Tank Vulture here, the double factory, instead of the 2-port.
I think this is a mech switch actually.
Yeah,
like if you're going to try and camp the game out, this is the one comp that can be cost effective. Also, it's Polypoid, where look, he doesn't even move and he's got 4 bases.
Yeah.
Right? So it's pretty easy to defend too. Now, it is going to be a struggle to get all of bottom left, but if he can split it, then Zerg's going to have a rough time. But, you know, Jaeyun can macro like a monster, but he is struggling to get the econ rolling like you were saying. Now he's starting to put down the macro hatches at top left. Bio is eliminating the lurkers on the left side, so there is a window where Kryok can start trying to split the map, but it is still going to be a rough position. Also, remember, the evolution chambers were done pretty quickly. So these are not 01 Zerg units. They're going to be like 02. Yeah, as you see, 02. They're going to be heavily upgraded pretty soon, and Ultras are already coming out too.
Yeah, and honestly, this transition for Zerg is one of the hardest parts of playing ZVT. Somehow, Kryok does not have that 6 o'clock base. He never sent an SCV to finish it. That's a massive blunder there because, you know, Terran definitely needs to be scaling up their economy as well and getting into the late game here. I mean, Terran can definitely contest Zerg late game, but they need to have a really strong economy with a bunch of production going. Looks like he's actually going to save that 6 o'clock. And as I was saying, this is the one part, though, that Jaeyun does sometimes, especially when he's under pressure and in tournament nerves like this, he does struggle into getting into this late game. You know, I know I've played, for example, Yabsab on the ladder, and Yabsab is so quick to just get his bases rolling and get into Ultra Tech, like without fail. But you can see already Jaeyun has a couple Ultras going. He has a, you know, he's basically saturating his 4th base. He has a 5th base ready. And at this point, I mean, Terran has some counterplay because, look, he's going to have 6 o'clock and then probably going to have bottom left because Kryok is expanding really quickly. And this is kind of the upside for going 2 factory here instead of 2 port, which is really interesting. I never would have thought about it. You know, I know probably you and I can definitely favor getting into 2 port in the vessel production first to be a bit more aggressive onto the map. But Kryok instead opting for a more passive approach, but it does allow him to get tank, vulture, Marines out everywhere and get his expansions rolling. So in general, I do like how Kryok has been playing this, and even from the Zerg point of view here, it's, you know, Jaeyun has a sick economy. It's not quite clear how he's going to mount an effective offense, though.
Well, it looks like he actually misclicked some drones there, but yeah, his econ is absolutely bananas. He's on 5 base right now, and drop upgrade is completed, so we may see some drops going into the Kryok main pretty soon. And this is the point in the game where Zerg becomes absolutely ridiculous. It's the 17 to 18 minute mark. They've got all their bases up and running. They've got macro hatches all over the place. They can afford going mass ultra. They can afford going, you know, 100 million lings, lurkers and defilers everywhere. And knowing Jaeyun, while he attacks somewhere, most likely bottom left, he's going to go for a drop at the same time. But you can see that Kryok's doing a good job laying a bunch of mines. As you were saying, Generally, you go into 2 port because he went into 1 port, he should have a lot of tanks on the left side. He should have a lot of vultures on the left side. So this may end up going into a real split map 50-minute game. We do see that the lings and defilers and lurkers are being loaded up as expected. And you can see Jaeyun drawing attention to the left side for this drop. So Kryok needs to be paying attention. Otherwise, these lings in the main are just going to wreak havoc on all of his buildings.
Yeah, this is looking really good for Jaeyun. I think he's going to slowly bust through in this bottom left. It just doesn't seem past the mines. There's much behind this as defense and a bunch of ultras going there. Now, Kryok already has turrets in position. I think if that actually hit the Defiler carrying Overlord, that was massive. No Defiler actually gets out. So this is going to be much easier to deal with. But you can see Kryok has just one pitiful tank at bottom left to defend and not quite the amount of tanks that you need there. And it looks like Jaeyun just found the timing there behind behind Kryok's mines. There just wasn't much defense there, and Kryok really did not transition successfully into mech. Now he's going to lose bottom left, and it looks like he's going to be able to hold on to his main for the meantime, and he's going to be able to hold on to his mineral only and probably his 6 o'clock base. But when you're trying to split the map in TVZ as a meching player, it's so crucial that you acquire and defend the other main as soon as you can. And now because he gave up that position, and it looks like Jaeyun's just going to be able to push through here.
Yeah, this is going to be the game-ending move, probably. Lurkers under Dark Swarm. The Ling drop actually killed both of the armories, too, so all the upgrades got denied. And GG comes out from Kryok. So nice win from Jaeyun. I like the transition from Kryok, but it's just so hard when you have done absolutely no damage with the Marine Medic. He essentially was trying to transition when Zerg already had 4 bases up and running. It's almost impossible task at that point. But Jaeyun looking really strong, and the 2-hatch play looked really solid.
Yeah, he just completely shut down the early Marine aggression from Kryok, and I think a lot of that was, you really have to be very careful as a Terran player in that matchup with your early Marines there, especially off of 3 racks. And that's because there's a significant amount of time where you don't have range. You have to really make sure your Marines are clumped. You can see Kryok also didn't have enough turrets at his natural. You definitely want more than 2, because otherwise, you know, when Jaeyun went for that Muta harass, he basically killed the entire mineral line for free and barely lost any mutalisks, you know. So that was just really good in general for Jaeyun in the mid game. But I think he took a while to get into the late game, and you saw he kind of like lost a couple lurkers here and lurkers there, not quite so smoothly with, you know, not quite as smooth as he would want to be in his transition into late game. So definitely not looking like immortal or anything. I think Kryok does not have to feel like he's hopeless in that matchup. He definitely has a good chance, but Jaeyun, I think, definitely outplayed him this game, and it's going to be a really good confidence boost for him going into game 2. Now, game 2 is gonna, okay, looks, I was going to speculate on what the map's going to be, but look, it's going to be Eclipse. So Jaeyun versus Kryok. If Kryok's in a must-win situation here, if he loses, he gets eliminated. If Jaeyun wins, he gets through to the next round, or to the last chance match. So let's get into it.
Right, in the top right in the blue, it is the German Terran Kryok.
And in the bottom left, in the red, it is the American Zerg, Jaeyun.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was looking at that larva. I thought that was going to be a 5 pool for a second. I was about to be tilted out of my mind. But it is not a 5 pool.
That's
Now-
such a Jaeyun move, you think? Nah, it's not. He would never.
No, that's a tie 2 move.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
a Tyler Byron move. Now, what do you think about this map pick versus someone like Jaeyun? Because I actually think this is a dangerous map, because he's someone that will just take a random third base. Like, there's no move out where you're feeling confident, like, oh, well, maybe I can't bust the natural, but I'm just going to go kill his third base. You have no idea where it is. It could be at top middle, for example. It could be bottom middle. It could be at top left. So if you move out and you aren't decisive with the move out,
Yeah.
I really think this is a questionable pick. Now, Jaeyun actually going for something a bit unusual. This is a 9 pool.
Yeah.
What do you think about
Interesting.
this?
I don't know what I think about this. He's clearly expecting an 8 racks or something, which makes sense on Eclipse, but it is a 2-player map. It's much easier to scout your opponent. It looks like he read this wrong, though, because it's going to be a 9 pool, no gas. I mean, this isn't that bad. It's not like that terrible economy-wise, because he's not committing to that gas. He might even not make too many lings. I feel like he might just make 2 lings, especially if he scouts. The thing is, he's not actually going to scout with the drone, so it's going to take a while for him to establish whether or not Kryok is on 8 racks. And so, in general, if Kryok goes for a standard build here, which it looks like he's going for, he's just going to come out ahead slightly. But again, if Jaeyun doesn't actually make too many lings with this, which it looks like he's not, because he's going to just put his hatchery down, economically he's fine. But that is a 10 hatchery. Yeah, I mean, he's a bit behind, but it's not the end of the world.
Well, this is a very weird opener, because it was a 9 pool, but then he put his hatch down before building lings. So now it's kind of like an overpull in terms of the timing. Am I correct? Like, it feels very weird. Regardless, he's going to put his gas down. I think if you do go for pool first builds, you got to go for gas, because otherwise, most of the time, a delayed pool like this doesn't really do much damage. Kryok's going to respond with probably a couple SCVs on the ramp. I don't expect this to deal much damage. SCV gets a full scout, sees that the gas is going down.
This is
Well,
really weird.
did he see it? Because there's still...
He
okay,
did,
there we
he
go.
did. This is really weird from Jaeyun. I mean, the fact that he got his hatchery first and then still went for 6 lings instead of like 2 or 4, like, you should know that there's no way for you to get any damage here. Now, the thing is, going for 6 lings is, I mean, it's going to force Kryok here to expand on the high ground. I think if Kryok was feeling himself, he definitely could have expanded on the low ground, given this build, especially given the fact that his scout got into the
Oh,
base.
wait a minute. He built something. Oh, he's building a depot. I thought he might have been...
This is really bad for Kryok. He's really delaying. This is the only thing. This is the thing, though, Nyokin, because honestly, in normal circumstances, Jaeyun would be behind here, but because he forced Kryok into getting that 3rd depot before his command center, now getting his command center on the high ground, when really
Terran in this position, 100%, even given the fact that the lings are late, and given the fact that he gets an SCV scout into the base so he can check for the ling count, he can check for ling speed, 100% of the time you should be able to get your command center on the low ground without having to commit to the third depot or anything. And unfortunately for Cryoc, he doesn't. So he's actually set behind when he normally shouldn't be. And so Jaeyun, his 9 pool here, despite setting him back, it's actually going to pay dividends. And I think they're probably both kind of even, if not the Zerg is a bit ahead, I think.
Well, we do have second racks coming in for Croc, so everything is very normal. And because of the delayed econ for Jaeyun, this academy timing may actually deal quite a bit of damage. Remember, the gas went down at 225 compared to about 205 in the first game, so a bit of a, well, actually the academy is a little late at 420, so I think the Mutas are going to get out in time. We'll see if Jaeyun is going to take a third hatch this early. It'd be very, well, you just saw the red box go all the way to top left, but I don't think a drone is being sent up there. He's actually made a sizable amount of lings. And, oh, the drone is going up there. This is what I'm talking about. You don't know where this guy is going to expand. And speed kicks in, and the Overlord sees the Marine count. 10 lings or whatever can easily wipe out at least half of these Marines. Let's see how many he can actually get. He gets on top of them, and he's dealing a decent... Oh, he actually didn't deal as much damage as possible, as I thought.
No, I mean, I was gonna say that's way too many Marines. You definitely, if you're gonna commit for this, you're literally all inning as Zerg. So, Cryoc there kind of gets caught out of position, but just because of his build, he made non-stop Marines off of 1 racks, then off of 2 racks. And Jaeyun, because he went 9 pool, he just doesn't have the kind of economy to have way more links. So that was honestly really bad from Jaeyun, because again, his economy is suffering, and he invested quite a bit into getting extra links there for that attack. And it just didn't pay off. So now suddenly, look at his drone count. It's just not that good at his natural. You really, sometimes in this situation, you have full drones at both your main and your natural, and you have a third base going faster than this, and now everything's kind of super laggy behind, and Cryoc's already pushing out. But this is a bit, the thing with this push here from Cryoc is that it's just too late. The Mutas are gonna pop out, and the reality is this looks scary, but with calm and collected Mutalist control, you can easily dispatch of this group, because range is never going to be done in time. So you can see Cryoc, instead of going to the natural, I guess he's trying to see, he doesn't know. This is the one hard part about playing TVZ in this specific point in time in the matchup, is that you just don't know where Zerg has his third, and it's really hard to get scouting out, because you don't want to scout too early with your SCVs, because that damages your economy. And then by the time you actually push out, you don't have that many Marines to just delegate around the map to really identify where the Zerg is. You don't have that many scouts. So honestly, just in general, I think Zergs should start abusing this more and just taking random expansions, because it's really, really, really hard against 2-hatch to establish where it is. And so you can see Cryoc, his main and force is kind of caught out in Narnia, literally not even in this dimension of this map. They're kind of just chilling in the southern part of the map. Jaeyun knows they're missing, and he's going to find them. If he finds them, barely scoots by them. He needs to find them, because these are free units. He knows they're there. Okay.
Yeah, now he's going to come in here and wipe these Marines off the face of the earth. It's only 8 Marines versus 11 Mutas and a couple lings. Cryoc desperately trying to focus fire down these Mutas. He gets one of them, but that's going to be a control group of Marine medic falling for free. And this is the problem when you move out this fast, is unless you can reinforce, the army's going to get caught out. Now we see that +1 armor is being rushed by Jaeyun here. Now this could be a whole bunch of things. If you had asked me even just a week ago what this means, I would tell you it's ultras. But in my experience on the ladder the past few days, that does not have to be the case. It can be Hydra Lurker. It can be Hydra Lurker with Queens, and they just pop broodlings on top of your tanks. So this may be some type of committed layer tech timing. We'll have to see.
No, I think the +1 carapace in general is really strong here, because the thing with Terran build orders in this matchup is that you usually go +1 weapons, then +1 armor. You don't really have, it's really hard to continue the +2 upgrade on time. So it's kind of a late game investment to, when you eventually get into ultras, you'll have equal carapace timing. It doesn't mean that you're rushing ultras, but in getting into the late game, right, when you do get ultras, you will have a really slick timing on that. So it really is kind of a later game investment, and if you can get away with it, it's really good, because Terran just cannot afford
getting upgrades in this matchup because you need double port. You need you got to get factory. You got to get double port to actually pressure Zergs. And with the double port, it's just impossible to get double eBay going at the same time. And obviously you want to get your armor upgrades. Also, just in general, Terran's pretty strapped for upgrades in this matchup. So I think that's what the evolution chamber is meant to abuse.
We do see that Kryok is doing a good job to tech up. He's got his starport done, still needs to get that science facility up and running. He's kept the majority of his Marines alive. That looks like the Muta count is down to about 7 now. So that is not a scary Muta count. Sure, they can still one-shot Marines, but if he even loses another 2 or so Mutas, all of a sudden he won't be able to one-shot those Marines anymore. It looks like he has preemptively built a few more, so he still is up at around 10. We did see another tank being built from Kryok, so again, he looks like he wants to exploit some type of timing, and the Hive this time is considerably later than Polypoid game, so he may actually have an opportunity to bust.
Yeah, it's I mean, it could be here for sure an opportunity to bust. It doesn't seem to me like Jaeyun, he definitely has does he have a Hydra Den?
No Hydra Den. He just has Queen's Nest. So this is gonna be just straight up ultras, LZ Gamer style, hide a base, go ultras, rush carapace, and then while this is all happening, take bottom right at the same time. So I'm sure Jaeyun knows that he'll be taking another base pretty soon, and now Kryok is on a timer. He's got to get something done because once +4 armor ultras kick in, you better have +2 weapon on your Marines. Otherwise, the ultras just are going to take 0 damage. They're just going to be immortal. Firebat confirms the bad news that top left is taken, and that base is a double gas base. So it's actually 4 gas Zerg right now.
I'm really scared for Jaeyun, to be honest here, because Kryok, as long as he doesn't bleed too many units to these Mutalisks, he's going to have a really sick timing here before ultras hit. And not only that, he's going to have so many tanks basically supporting his bio ball. So the thing is, these Mutas can still do a lot of damage, but if Kryok gets up to Jaeyun's natural with a bunch of units and the tank supporting, even if the ultras actually pop out, what are they going to do? Because there's 3 siege tanks with a bunch of bio, and there's no way Zerg's going to have the upgrades in time here. So I actually think Jaeyun's just going to lose here.
Yeah, Sunkens are morphing, but that's not many. It's only 2. Also, Mutas have been doing a pretty good job to thin out the bio ball, but they just keep coming because it's 5 racks production. Tanks are on his doorstep, and there's no ultras out just yet. I still see the gas bank is extremely high, so that means that he isn't really building that many ultras either. So even if they come out, will it even be enough to take down this army? As I say that, the Marines are slowly getting eliminated by these Mutas. What happened to the vessel? Where's the irradiate?
I don't think he has a radiate. I mean, it's just hard to afford all of this at this timing here, and he probably just didn't have enough resources to research a radiate when he could have. And Jaeyun with the clutch Muta micro, that looked literally so terrible for him, but that literally just salvaged him the game at this point. It's going to be so hard for Kryok to do anything.
Oh no.
Because, okay, he actually did have a radiate. That was such a misplay from Kryok if he did have a radiate on that vessel, because he would have just won the game right there. And because he didn't end the game before ultras come out, and because he doesn't have double starport here, he does have double starport actually. He doesn't have his upgrades though. You can see, like, the thing is, Kryok's just not quite spending his resources here. It's weird to see because it's kind of really hard to float this much gas in this situation. I wonder, I mean, let's not get into that just yet. But
I don't think it's broken. Jaeyun,
I don't know. I don't know.
Jaeyun's building a bunch of units now. He's consistently kept his money
I
pretty
think
low. Now that, yeah, I know Kryok is floating a little bit, but I think that might have just been a misstep there. Vessels have started coming out, but unless he can mech switch into something, he's not ever going to trade effectively versus these ultras. He's down upgrades pretty soon. +2 should be kicking in very quickly. We do see +3 is done, but that's because of the ultra carapace.
Yeah, just this game seems really weird. I wonder if we can maybe switch into Jaeyun's point of view, see where he's at. Just to make sure. I mean, it looks like it might not be broken. Yeah, it looks like it's actually totally fine. So the game's going on here. Jaeyun, of course, he's not necessarily in the greatest
economical spot, but you can see he's slowly building up his Ultralisk count, and he's gonna hit his, I'm assuming he's just waiting for his armor upgrades here before he goes. He does have 4-1. He's actually waiting for Ultra Speed, and now it finally kicks in. So you can see, I think he doesn't know where the Terran army is, and he doesn't want to lose top left for free. But slowly, once he gets into position onto the map, Jaeyun's just gonna hit the sick A move here. Now, the problem is he doesn't have any defilers with this, and Kryok actually has really strong production behind. He has basically 8 racks going with double starport, and the thing is his upgrade is just not there. He doesn't have +2, so it doesn't matter how well you're spending your money or how big your army is as Terran. If you're on an upgrade deficit against Ultralisks, it is so incredibly punishing. And here, I mean, Kryok's army is really, really big. And Jaeyun has so many Ultras though, and with the upgrade advantage, I just can't see. I can't see Terran winning. If Terran gets +2 before this fight happens, but there's just so many cows.
Yeah, this is going to be a devastating attack for Kryok. He's going to lose 2 of his vessels. There's no way he's going to kill any of these Ultras, maybe 1, but the rest of the army is going to fall. He even has really clutch D-Matrix, but there's just not critical mass Marines. There's no +2 weapon. And at the same time, as I was saying, this is LZ Gamer. He's going to be taking bottom right, and that's exactly what he's done. You think you kill top left, and that's his only base? Wrong. There's another one bottom right. Ultra coming in, suicide.
Oh, I think +2 hit.
Well, +2 might have kicked in, but +3 is coming along for the Ultras. And still, it's Marine Medic versus a player that has 4 gas. That means they have almost endless amounts of Ultras. Kryok was ahead 30 to 40 supply in that fight, and it just doesn't matter because of how powerful the Ultras are with the upgrade advantage. And now Jaeyun has a 5th base. If he just puts down a Defiler mount, combos it with Dark Swarm, there's nothing that can deal damage to units under Dark Swarm. We have all Marine Medic, no Fire Bats, no tanks. Dropships get taken out too. And with the dropships going down, Kryok tops out. He knows that it's an impossible task. And Jaeyun is going to move on to the decider match to face Boa in a rematch of what we saw earlier.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting. Of course, Boa got the win there. It was pretty close, 2-1. Jaeyun's going to have to make some magic happen, though, because Boa looked really on point PvZ, but at the same time, Boa played some really tilting games, I think, versus Dandy. So this could be anyone's game. But before we get into that final game, we're going to take a quick break. So, don't blink, because we'll be right back. Dude, he killed the shuttle as the Reaver got popped back in, so really unfortunate there from Boa. Completely mismicroed that. Yeah, here comes the shuttle. Like you said, the positional advantage playing here. It's so easy for Oyoji to get in here. He's gonna kill so many probes with this. I mean, okay, luckily Boa pulls. Oh my god, that Scarab actually connected somehow, and we know just how much Boa is hurting in the econ department.
He's down 20 supply in the army value. Now this is one way you can get back, is if he gets a catch onto that Reaver, but there's a second one already there. Oh no,
Yeah.
no, they both go down. Oh no, one of them goes down, but the two Reavers on the high ground are now just in the late. Hey man, look at those, that juicy shot onto those 5 goons. 3 of them die instantly, and this is going to be Oyoji easily holding Boa's attack, and this is more than likely going to be GG. There it is. So Oyoji is going to move in to the round of 16, taking a decisive victory over Cadenzi, and then a decisive victory over Boa.
So I think Boa, if he goes right now, he has a really strong timing to bust this base. He's going in, the 2 shuttles dropping on top of the tanks and the vultures, but there's such a good Sim City from Terran. Most of the zealots are just hitting bunkers, hitting depots. The goons are also hitting depots.
But the command center is going to fall down, and if those goons actually got onto the tanks, this game is 100% over. But because they did,
Oh my God.
they're just going to get the command center really low. Here comes the shuttle. He's getting on right on top of the tanks, and with all these tanks behind him on the low ground, they're really not going to be landing their shots effectively.
Possible. It looks like Boa is actually going again to attack this base, but it's really not that big of an army.
Yeah. Oh, great storms blanketing the majority of the tanks, but you can see the power of +3 weapon despite. But Terran's getting closer and closer.
Oh!
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
It's a beautiful one. It's beautiful.
The mines just completely demolished that Protoss army. But look, and Boa's just gonna attack here, but this is the worst possible attack for Protoss. The Terrans just sieging down all the Protoss units. Massive storm going down onto all the tanks, but that's just one storm you really need to change. Still, one of the worst engagements he could go for, but he has so many units and there's just so few vultures to deal with the zealots that are finally getting on top of the tanks. The storms go off, everything's going off, and I think at this point, I think Terran's been broken, man.
Yeah.
Terran is so poor right now. This is all he has left.
Yeah, it's 3 tanks, a handful of vultures, tons of D-Matrix available. Oh, that's a great EMP. But unfortunately, there's just too much Protoss Arbiter and more Zealots coming in through the back. Another great EMP. So Terra may survive for now, but the standing army is 1 tank, 7 vultures, and no, there's just too many goons. This has got to be it now. It has to be. There's no more money. There it is. GG. So Terra is going to be eliminated. Welcome back. We are about to get into our decider match between Jaeyun and Boa. We already saw this happen earlier. Boa ended up making it, or getting a victory earlier, but falling to Dandy, and now he is in the decider match. We'll see if Boa can continue his domination over Jaeyun. His zealot timing looked really good, and Jaeyun kind of struggled to deal with the Sayers getting supply blocked multiple times. The zealot harassment also a bit of a struggle. So what do you think about this? Is Jaeyun warmed up now, or is it just going to be the Boa show again?
I don't know, man. I'm feeling a bit worried for Jaeyun, to be completely honest with you. I feel like he seemed a bit nervous in all of his games today. And Boa just seemed really strong in PvZ, and it looks like his gate expand is really strong, and his early game is really strong in PvZ. And it's just, that can be so punishing against a Zerg that's just not handling it well enough. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know. I'm a bit worried for Jaeyun. Like, I really can't say anything else. One thing is for sure, we're gonna have at least one North American representative going into the round of 8, so that's a plus.
Yeah, so there is the silver lining there, that at least one player from NA is going to make it out. Our first map is going to be on Polypoid. We did see this earlier, and Boa got a victory. So we'll see if Jaeyun can turn it around, or if Boa is going to go off to a quick 1-0 lead. In the top left in the blue, we have Boa. Oh, in the bottom left.
Yeah, and in the wait, in the bottom left, yeah, top left, red Zerg, Jaeyun, bot left, blue Protoss, Boa, top left, red Zerg, Jaeyun. But going into game 1 here, again, 4-player map. I think what we've noticed in the previous, and they've already played Polypoid, by the way, so this is a repeat of one of the maps that they previously played. What we've noticed in the last, what's it called? The last series, the last best of 3, is that Boa seems to go for the gate expand on 2-player maps. At least he did so on Benzene and on Eclipse. But on the 4-player map, Polypoid, he actually went the Forge expand. So I'm gonna be curious to see if that trend follows, if he gets a Forge this game. And if that's the case, Jaeyun already going for, actually he went for a 9-pool this game. So really interesting. I think 9-pool punishes 11 Nexus. So maybe Jaeyun was expecting kind of an 11 Nexus, but it looks like Boa breaking the cycle, or just telling Gypsy to shut up. Going for that, is that a gate or a Forge?
That's a gate.
Yeah, so going for the gate.
So we thought it was going to be a bit of a tell that he was opening Forge on 4-player maps, but instead he's showing us that he does mix it up. Now, what do you think about 9-pool versus this? Because maybe Jaeyun was thinking along the same lines as us, is that, hey, 4-player map, he's just playing Forge. So maybe 9-pool, I'll go 9-pool here. But versus Gateway, does this throw a wrench into Jaeyun's plan?
I think the 9-pool 100% was there as if you scout 11 Nexus on one of the close positions, you insta-win. You can see Jaeyun with the Overlord would have seen it. But unfortunately, against Gate first, Boa responding beautifully already, just put down his Forge. He has
the first hit.
Yeah,
got the first hit. Oh, he's going to be moving shot. Oh, if he can moving shot this drone.
Oh, dude, that was so close.
Yeah, he's not going to. Well, maybe he's coming in for another round. Round 2, he's trying to snipe it. Instead, the hatchery does go down. And now, this is going to be a big loss for Boa because now he doesn't know what's the follow-up. Is this more lings? Is this speed? Is it third hatch? What exactly is it? So he's going to just be in the dark here.
Yeah, and, you know, you can see here he actually has to get a cannon first. So, to be completely honest, I'm not too sure. This looks like the correct response here from Boa. I don't know if he could have cut more corners and got the Nexus down right away. So in general, this 9-pool doesn't seem too terrible in that despite Boa going for the gate first, he forced the Forge and forced the cannon. But against only 6 lings, this does, look, he's even pulled 2 probes here. This seems like a bit of an overreaction from Boa. So I think Jaeyun's gonna be pretty happy with this opening, but now that the cannon finishes, Boa's going to push out the 2 Zealots, 3 Zealots now. So this is also why the Nexus was so delayed. Is that Boa just kept pumping Zealots from his gateway. Jaeyun could possibly go for a run by. It's only 1 cannon, but taking a couple of shots from the Zealots and from the 1 cannon makes it so that it's not worth it anymore. And Boa going for this massive Zealot production off of the 1 gate. He's going to be pressuring Zerg very soon here. I think the 4th Zealot is going to pop out. But as you said, Nyokin, Boa doesn't really have the scouting information that he would want to, so he has no idea what Jaeyun has, and you can see that's why he's playing so defensively here with these Zealots, because Jaeyun's always threatening kind of mass ling all in at this point. And it looks like he's going for something like that because he actually is making a lot of lings and went for speed, but actually he's also expanding at 12 o'clock, so I think he's just playing really safe.
Yeah, he's got to respect the move out here. It's 4 Zealots versus about 10 Lings, and that's not going to be enough. He's going to turn around for now. And we've seen this before. Boa just moving out with a handful of Zealots, and he's traded so effectively each time. That time a Zealot got caught out a little bit, but forcing so many Lings. Nexus is about to finish, so he's going to have that up and running soon. Now, did these Zealots go a little bit too far? They're into the drone line, forces a drone pull. And now they're just going to be stuck here, but they've already done quite a bit of damage. Lings being built at the 3rd base too. What angle do you take from here to actually engage this?
I mean, there's enough Lings here, I think, that he's going to be able to clean this up. Boa's going to have some nice trades on the bottom side here, though. The 2 Zealots getting surface area onto the Lings, but finally the Lings pour through. Still good trades from Boa, but still Jaeyun's going to completely clean this up, and he's going to have 3 hatchery production behind this, and he has like a decent amount of leftover lings with link speed, so he doesn't really need to keep making any more lings. He can just go into droning off the 3 hatcheries. Not that bad for Jaeyun, to be completely honest with you. I mean, Boa definitely, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I think Protoss is probably better in this position, but okay, now that he's actually losing 2 more zealots here, this is pretty bad for Boa, because he actually invested quite a bit into the continuous zealot production. We know he delayed his Nexus, for example. Now his Stargate is actually almost done, so his tech is on time, pretty significantly on time. Meanwhile, Jaeyun, but you can see Jaeyun's compensation there, 4th hatchery halfway done. He's gonna have his 5th hatchery going down just in a second. He has to start his Hydra Den. So in general, I feel like this is a pretty even game for both players, because despite the fact that Boa looked to have done a decent amount of damage with that move out, you have to remember he invested quite a bit to continuously make zealots off that 1 gate, and then the subsequent 2 zealots that reinforced did absolutely nothing and kind of were just donated to Jaeyun. So Jaeyun has a lot of time here to just drone back up and get into a nice position.
A bit of a shakeup in builds from Jaeyun. He's going for 5 hatch before lair. Just now started his Hydra Den. So this is going to be super econ for him, but he's going to have to fend off the Sares. He's already building a couple spores. It looks like he's not going to find any Overlord kills this time. Remember, in the past few games, he got supply blocked multiple times. So now that he's not supply blocked, he should be able to get his econ up and running. But Citadel was pretty quick too, and he's been pumping a decent amount of zealots consistently off of 1 gate. So he needs to respect the potential move out pretty soon. Templar Archive is done, and we saw last time on Polyvoid a 3 zealot 1 DT move out, and it just wreaked havoc on the 3rd base.
Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna see that from Boa. The thing with Jaeyun this game is that his lair is nowhere near done, so, or even started at this point. Really committing a lot to droning, which is fine. But the problem is he's not gonna have Overlord speed anytime soon. He's not gonna have Spire. These Corsairs are gonna be so annoying to deal with, and I know Boa definitely likes playing the Corsair style. You can see he's still making only 3 Corsairs, not getting +1 air, but at the same time he does have double. Okay,
ooh,
so that's a
Robo.
really fast armor or Robo.
Yeah, so this might be.
Yeah, I think that's for drops.
I was gonna say it was gonna be for goons, but yeah, I think you're right. It is drops. Earlier today, I was watching a game with Shuttle and Miso, and he went for a really fast DT Templar drop.
Yeah.
He gets into the 3rd base, and there's nothing really. Okay, there is 2 Hydras gonna try and blast down these Corsairs. Multiple Overlords still. Oh, he gets a couple of the Overlords. What happened to the DT? I think the Lynx took it up. I saw a second one coming in. It died too.
That's so bad from Boa. He's just sacking all his Corsairs. That's so much production time from the Stargate. I mean, you might think that's not a big deal. He literally just sacrificed 2 Corsairs went down. One's basically at 1 health. But that might not seem like a lot of resources because the Corsairs aren't that expensive. But the reality is he only has 1 Stargate. It takes so long to build up to that Corsair count, and they're really only effective once you get up to that 5-6 Corsair range. So suddenly Boa, and also he lost the first DT, so this attack, this drop into the main base, imagine if he has 6 Corsairs with that shuttle that's going to go into the main base, right? Undoubtedly there's a shuttle coming from the Robo right now. Now with six Corsairs, 100% you guarantee that you kill whatever Overlord is at the main and whatever Overlord is going from the natural into the main. But at this point, I mean, you can't really do that with the Corsairs that he has. Now, luckily for him, there's still no Overlords in Jaeyun's main base, so it's very possible that this quick DT drop is going to do massive amounts of damage.
Yeah, and he's spending a lot of gas on these DTs too. He's already lost 2 of them at the top middle base.
Oh,
now
no.
he loaded up 3 more. Overlord, why are you here? It is, and it sees the shuttle coming in. Somehow the Sares didn't find this 1 Overlord. Now he's going to be sending them to try and sync up with the shuttle. And Jaeyun knows what's coming. You can see him scrambling to get an Overlord in position. He doesn't have speed, but because of how slow the shuttle is itself, it looks like he may be able to get into position. He is going to force a drone pull. Oh, there are the stairs, as you were saying. Can he take out that Overlord? Of course it can. And he's not sending any more Overlords. So this might actually be not only a dead lair, but also a dead main, potentially dead macro hatch too. Oh, their speed, it was just barely not completed.
Honestly, if Boa here had 6 stairs, this game would be, I mean, I don't know, I guess maybe he would have still defended Jaeyun, would have, but with 6 to 7 stairs, like, you could see this game going really, really south for Jaeyun, and unfortunately, Boa just didn't have the Corsairs there to, like, he just kills the Overlord thing, a bit of a misclick there for Jaeyun, but a bit angry at his Overlords for just being so slow for so long. Only at 10 minutes does he finish Overlord speed, and just in general, Boa kind of mishandling the early game. He had such a good opening, and tactically and strategically it made so much sense to go for Corsairs and DTs and into drops. Like, it's really impressive. I think his IQ in this matchup particularly, he plays it really, really, really well the early game. But I think just now we're seeing kind of signs of what we've seen when he plays PvT. He just does these like really sloppy things where he loses units. Now his big push is coming, but only 4 Corsairs here. They're gonna die to these Scourge, and now we know Scourge are out onto the map, so there's a Spire, and we just lost all our Corsairs, so I wouldn't be surprised if I was gonna say Jaedong is queuing up a couple Mutas here, but Jaeyun, he's threatening the Muta switch very hard at this point.
Yeah, but look at this SimCity. What an angle for the Hydras to dish out the damage onto the Reaver. Didn't see that. 2 Reavers here, but there's no anti-air. First couple Mutas come out. What happened to the stairs? They're across the map, just like in the last series. They were across the map in that Zealot Templar fight. Now the Reavers instantly die. It forces the Zealots to go in. Now that Reaver shot got off a couple of drone kills, but the Mutas are going to clean up everything else. And this is an overwhelming amount of Mutas. The Corsairs cannot engage this. And back in the main, there's no cannons, just like on Benzine. So now Boa's got to scramble to get up some defense. We've seen Archon coming in, but this was an impeccable Muta switch from Jaeyun.
Yeah, I mean, it's very telegraphed at that point when you kill all those Corsairs for free and your Econ's just free rolling like this as Zerg. You have a bunch of minerals and gas to work with now. That being said, Boa still got a lot of damage onto this natural. Well, he didn't really kill any drones though, so that's going to be kind of a good sight for Jaeyun. He does get his mining interrupted at his natural for a second there, and now the follow-up attack with 4 Corsairs and an Archon is going to be really scary to deal with, and a Reaver actually. This is not a lot of units, but at the same time, Jaeyun heavily invested into Mutalisks, so he only has a handful of Hydralisks to deal with this. The Reaver might be more than enough. If a big shot connects, big Scarabs going down here, and Jaeyun nowhere near getting into this Reaver, so somehow I think Boa might find a miraculous attack here. This is so insane to see. From Boa, he's actually just gonna bust through to Jaeyun despite losing his shuttle of Reavers and all his Zealots for free against the Mutalisks. His follow-up attack is just clean and surgical, completely demolishing Jaeyun here, and absolutely this attack blew my mind, dude. GG.
Yeah, GG coming out from Jaeyun, and such a small army did so much damage. That Archon with the haymaker jab to the Mutas just weakened all of them up, and then like 4 Corsairs decimated everything. I actually can't believe that Boa, after having that trade, decided that, yeah, I can win on the second follow-up attack. Like, what did he see that I didn't see that made him think like, yeah, I can just bulldoze 15 Mutas?
Dude, let me say this. 100. I'll say this 100% with 100% confidence. But Boa's understanding of PvZ early game is incredible. I'm not even and I'm not even saying this because I'm Mr. Gypsy, the BSL caster, have to, you know, be very nice to all the players and stuff. I legitimately think this. Boa played really well. Just in general, in PvZ early game, he plays so well. Even in last game, when we saw his move out with the Zealots, he actually did it at a perfect timing where you would identify that it's a Hydra all-in. This game, just everything made sense. His execution was a bit off because he lost that early DT. He lost the Corsairs for free, but everything else was just so cohesive and well put together that he just smashed through Jaeyun, and that was so impressive. And I think Boa's, like, despite his failings clearly in terms of execution, and we see it especially in PvT where he's a bit more shabby, but in PvZ, I think his early game is just so solid that it really makes up for this. And he got into such a sick position and just pulled that attack right out of who knows where. That was amazing. That was honestly, I'm actually like kind of amazed by that.
Yeah, so Boa is one game away from making it out of this group in second place, and Jaeyun is on the ropes. Let's see if Benzine can be his map. If it's not, he's gone. So let's get into game 2, Jaeyun versus Boa. In the top right in the blue, he needs your energy, otherwise he's going to be eliminated. It is Jaeyun.
And in the bottom left, in the red pieces, playing for a trip into the round of 8, it is Boa. And yeah, dude, I'm still kind of in awe. That was really good. That was really clean from Boa. His early game is so clean. His game, like his Zealot micro is so clean. He knows exactly when he wants to push out to identify what the Zerg is doing. He just navigates it so well. And Jaeyun, like, I mean, Jaeyun played really well that game, but that attack was just nuts.
Yeah, it did a surprising amount of damage. Sure, he had the Archon and he had the Reaver, which can dish out a lot of damage, but the one connection or the two connections that the Archon got just completely changed what I thought was going to be a Jaeyun, at least maybe not a victory, but a winning fight right there. Now we do see what looks like maybe an 11 Nexus from Boa. He's scouting, and he is going to see that it is going to be what looks to be a 12 hatch from Jaeyun. So that's going to give him the confidence to just instantly put down that Nexus. Now, I wonder how this will fare for Boa, because he's been doing really well with the gateway pressure, but now with the Nexus going up, he's not going to be able to pressure. But as I say that, I think the Polypore game, he opened up with the Forge too, right? And that's a passive build, and he still played very well. Oh, no, that was Eclipse.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that was Polypoid. That was Polypoid.
It was Polypoid, dude. Yeah.
So basically, what I was getting at is I wasn't sure how Boa was going to play in a passive game when he's been doing such good damage with his aggro play. But I remember he got a victory on Polypoid, so scratch that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, man, Boa's the real deal. At least in this early game PvZ, he like I'm not even joking. It's so clear he knows exactly what he's doing now. Maybe he has a very good matchup against Jaeyun. It would be interesting to see him against other Zerg players as well, to see if he's that consistent across players. But here again, Jaeyun kind of uncomfortably has to take this bottom right expansion, and there are ways of abusing this even early game. Now Jaeyun, I think in general, it's going to be really hard for him to go for something. I mean, I think because he sees that this is it's the Nexus first, but because he sees it's a Forge variation, not like a Gateway variation, not an aggressive variation, I think Jaeyun might be comfortable enough to just tech off of this. But of course, if this was Gate first, then Jaeyun would be 100% forced into getting Link speed and probably playing a hatchery-based game, kind of like last game, which I think you saw Boa had a really, really beautiful response lined up to abuse the fact that the lair wasn't there, that there wasn't Spire, there wasn't Overlord speed. So he would have been really happy to see that, Boa pausing the game for a second here. But in terms of the builds, I mean, Jaeyun again, the fact that he keeps getting delayed here at taking his natural is massive.
So it looks like they were just agreeing on setting the latency to high. And actually, Jaeyun is going for fast 3 bases here, bottom right. He ended up going for, I think, a 12 pool and then taking the hatch at bottom right. And we'll see where this 100 gas goes. Most likely going to be into the lair. And that is exactly what we see. So do you think we're going to see a repeat of Mutas? Is this going to be Hydras? Benzine, from what I remember, is a big-time Hydra map, but we already saw a victory pulled out of the hat from Jaeyun by going for Mutas.
Yeah, well, this game, I mean, he is going lair, so Yeah, you can't really know. Like, you can't really know. It's never those types of Mutalisk plays, because the Zerg never, the build order isn't committed until very late, right? In terms of ZVP into getting Mutas. So it's very flexible, and you know, while you're piloting through this early mid game phase, you can make a lot of decisions as to whether or not you want to go for Mutalisks or not. And there's a lot of factors that go into that, but it's not really factors that you can very eloquently put into words. It's just kind of like a feeling of playing the game out. So I really don't know. I mean, in the back of both these players' minds is that the same game on Benzene they played, where Jaeyun did go for the Mutas and did instantly kill Boa. So that's going to be, for example, I think Boa is never going to chase an Overlord with the Corsair, the first Corsair that he makes. He's always going to beeline into Jaeyun's base. And again, something that we already talked about, the rush distances on this map are pretty significant. So even if you blindside your opponent with a Mutalisk, they have quite a lot of time to at least build cannons and react to it before the Mutas get to your base. Like literally, this is one of the longest distance, like despite being a 2-player map, this is one of the longest maps, right? So I really don't know what to expect for either player, but in Boa's side of the map, he has a Stargate and he has a second gas, so he's going to go straight into Citadel and Templars here, so probably fast DTs again, considering that's been his choice over the past 5 games.
I think we're actually going to get a repeat of game 1 with the Citadel being for speed. I think we're going to have a couple more gateways come up. Yep, there is a gateway at the natural. And Jaeyun, I've constantly been looking at the mini-map to see if a second extractor has gone down. It has at the natural, so this may be some more Muta play, but because of how late it is, I think this is just going to be first standard Scourge. We do see the 4th and 5th hatch coming down, Hydrogen coming down too, so likely not going to have the Mutas this time, but we are going to have a quick Zealot follow-up.
Yeah, but again, the second gas is always very indicative of tech. It doesn't look like Boa is actually going for that, and he's not getting +1 on his Cyber Core. He's continuously making Corsairs. So the second gas here is a bit interesting. I mean, the reality is sometimes you don't end up spending it, and pulling gas is totally fine in this matchup because, you know, Templar, again, are 150 gas, 50 minerals. So even if you have a crazy kind of gas to mineral ratio, you can very quickly use it up as Protoss. So I think it's probably meant to pulling gas to getting Templar while continuously making Corsair. So definitely not going to be the DT follow-up that we've seen. And maybe, as you said though, Boa is only really on 1 gateway, correct? Or does he have 2 gates? No, he does have 2 gates. So yeah, you're totally right, Naokin. It's going to be a +1 Zealot timing, and behind that he's going to basically make 4 to 6 Templar to start banking up energy while he's out on the map, crushing Corsairs with Corsairs and Zealots. And again, guys, look at Boa's PVZ. This is really just a really solid build that he's doing.
Well, we do have the Mutas coming out, but this time Boa has not skimped on Serge. I think he's approaching 5 now. Yep, he has 4, but I did see about 4 Scourge also mixed in, so he's got to be careful and not. Oh, he cannot take a trade like that. He loses 1 Corsair instantly, and now the Mutas have free reign over these Zealots. So this is going to be 6 to 7 Zealots, pretty much gifted to Jaeyun for free, only forcing a drone pull. And that's going to be good news for all you Jaeyun fans out there, that this trade went extremely favorably for him. DT is coming out, but this time, because there is air superiority for Jaeyun, unlikely that the DTs are actually going to deal any damage. More Zealots are going to fall. This is probably going to trigger a couple more cannons in the main because he doesn't want to have a repeat of game 1. There are a couple cannons, so this is stalling out his 7 gateway push that we saw on Polypoid.
Yeah, the big problem I see here is I don't really understand why Boa didn't commit to getting +1 air weapons if you're going to do this build. It definitely helps him to fight this this air army, and interestingly enough, going for that Dark Archon, we do see this sometimes, mostly from players that actually skip Corsairs, but you know, in conjunction with Corsairs, that's also going to be really good. It's going to completely lock down the Mulisks while the Corsairs just wail on them. But the problem with Corsairs against Mutas here aren't the Mutas themselves, but it's the Scourge, and maybe he's going to have some sick Maelstroms on the Scourge, but definitely the Dark Archon is there to catch the Muta clump. But in general, this opening is very, very, very good for Jaeyun. He basically took absolutely no damage, reset the Zealot count, reset the Corsair count, and remember, Boa was on 2-gate for the longest time, so it's not like his production was, you know, if you're not on 2-gate, you can usually boom up into 4-gate and into 6-gate, but because he went 2-gate with continuous Zealot production and continuous Corsair production off his Stargate, he definitely does not, like, he's not as accelerated into his build as he would otherwise be. And when Zerg gets to just survive that pressure for free, you can see he's already on 6, Jaeyun is already on 6 hatchery, 7th hatchery at the 4th base, so he's gonna go up to 4 bases. And meanwhile, Boa just now finishing his 8 gates. He barely has an army. This is gonna be so hard for Boa to do any damage here. I'm suspecting that he's gonna have to play a long game and take a 3rd base here, but Jaeyun is just in such a good macro spot.
Yeah, Jaeyun closing the gap in terms of supply. It's 108 to 87. One more round of Hydras will put him at about even, but here comes Boa. He's got 2 Templar, 1 Dark Archon. Dark Archon is of course looking to Maelstrom the Mutalisk, but it's pretty good versus Hydra too, so any juicy clump of units, you know that's where the Maelstrom's going to be landing. So we'll see if he can bust. I think he wants to go to mid right because bottom right looks a little bit too fortified with all the Sunkens, but maybe I'm wrong. He is ending up or looking to go there. He sees the units coming in from the angle. Can the Maelstrom? Oh, he gets a good Maelstrom right there, right on top of him, and the Storm like it's the Hydras in the back. And this is the trade that he was looking for, but is there enough Zealots?
That was absolutely sick from Boa. I thought he would just get absolutely trucked this fight. But literally, a spellcasting god, this guy's a wizard, not a Protoss player, literally lands the perfect Maelstrom and Storm. Somehow, his Zealots are still healthy enough to push in here. Now, Jaeyun definitely has a huge production behind this, but the thing is, look, Boa still has all his Corsairs out. They're going to go around killing a bunch of Overlords while this is happening. No. He's up a bunch of supply, and I think he probably has cracked Jaeyun. It doesn't seem like Jaeyun's going to have enough as he gets put into red supply. He's not going to have enough units to stop this, and Boa, what was that, man? The guy is a wizard, dude.
Yeah, Boa with another sick timing. Supplies have plummeted for Jaeyun, 60 out of 39. He's going to scramble to get Overlords. Otherwise, he's just permanently supply blocked. And that also means there's about 5 more Overlords somewhere. Luckily for Jaeyun, Boa hasn't found the bottom right Overlords. He's got 6 Sairs, so he would massacre that clump of Overlords in an instant. And behind this, no 3rd base. Instead, he's going up to 9-gate with a Robo, so he just wants to end this game.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's going for that 3rd base, which could be a silver lining for Jaeyun if he survives somehow. But look, Goons are getting added into the composition. There's still a decent amount of Corsairs. They're going to keep killing all these Overlords, and that's going to be terrible for Jaeyun's production. Nice Storm goes out onto the Hydralisk because Jaeyun just doesn't have enough units there, and Boa is still plowing through here now. Not too many Protoss units remain, but again, remember, these Corsairs are slowly killing off all the Overlords. Going to plunge Jaeyun back into the red supply. Not just yet, though, so Jaeyun can still keep making units. And the thing is, Jaeyun doesn't necessarily need to... Damn, he GG's.
Oh, he just types out. So GG, well played. Boa is going to be the one to move on, knocking out one of the favorites of NA, Jaeyun. Unfortunately, not his day, but Boa, his PVZ is clearly top notch. He just dismantled Jaeyun every single time. Yeah. Almost every single game he supply blocked Jaeyun too. So this guy, you got to watch out for him if you are a Zerg player.
Yeah, if there's one thing we've learned, his versus Terran matchup not looking that great, but his versus Zerg matchup is so on point. I mean, seriously, guys, that was really impressive. I'm really excited to see him in the round of 8. I really hope he gets another Zerg player. He gets matched with a Zerg player rather, because I think that's going to be just interesting to watch, to see if, you know, what happens when he plays versus someone like Gorn or someone like True Touch. Can he have the same level of execution? I feel like he can, but we'll have to see. And with that, I mean, basically, Dandy and Boa making it through today's group. I guess Dandy, not that much of a surprise in terms of his past. You know, we were kind of wondering, is he really on form? Is he really on form? But his versus Protoss today looked really solid. His versus Terran looked really solid. We've yet to see him play TVZ this tournament, so that's a big question mark. We'll have to see if he does run into any Zergs in the future here. But really impressive performance from Dandy, the clear kind of best player today. And then Boa, surprised kind of, well, not really surprised, because I don't think any of these players are significantly above the rest. And I think Jaeyun was maybe a bit more of a favorite, but definitely Boa getting out in second place. You know, one North American representative, and the guy clearly just absolutely sick PvZ.
Yeah, he crushed it versus Jaeyun. Was doing pretty well versus Dandy, but Dandy just too much of a monster. So we have Dandy and Boa moving out, and that's going to be wrapping up Group A. So of course we got to shout out our sponsors here. Thank you so much for supporting the BSL, Liquipedia, Blizzard Esports Fund, our viewers, and our Patreon supporters. You've got at the $100 level, the one and only Star Lover. And we have a couple down at the Bombastic Colonel level, Andre Stravkowski, Druglog Striker, Christian Eddington, Mad Cat's Fury Road, Scott Walfield, LML, Lingen Pump, and Comchalk. Thank you so much for supporting the BSL. And we're going to be back tomorrow with Group B, which is another stacked group. All of the groups in the round of 16 are super stacked. This, to me, is one of the death groups. Well, actually, they're all ridiculously strong. Tomorrow, Group B, Eon Zerg, Vadi, Bonneth, and Casper. So 2 Terrans, 1 Zerg, and a Protoss, the reigning BSL champion in Bonneth. So we may actually have the champ get knocked out in the round of 16. We may have a former champ get knocked out in the round of 16 in Eon Zerg. So that should be a really sick group. You got any predictions for that group?
Yeah, I really don't know. I think historically Eon Zerg has been the bane of Bonneth. I think Eon Zerg kind of winning against Bonneth. I mean, I don't know exactly what their actual score is in terms of probably all the games they've played throughout, but definitely in tournaments, I can remember a lot of times where Eon Zerg kind of randomly smacked Bonneth. But at the same time, Bonneth is in a group with 2 other, I mean, he's in amazing shape, obviously, and he's in a group with 2 other Terrans. His PvT is absolutely unreal. I can't imagine him losing PvT to either of those players. And just based off that alone, it's really hard for me to conceive of a world where Bonneth doesn't make it through to the round of 8, but Eon Zerg is definitely going to give him a run for his money. And Vadi and Casper, definitely really strong Terran players. So I think, you know, either one of them could make a dent, but for sure, I think Eon Zerg, and because Eon Zerg has a pretty nasty ZVT also, I think Eon Zerg and Bonneth are looking like favorites in that group. But the Terran lineup is absolutely no joke. So, you know, guys, you definitely don't want to miss it tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree with that analysis. So tomorrow's going to be Group B, same time, same place. We'll see you there.